Okay, good evening, everyone. We are on the record. Today is Monday, January 8th, 2018. This is a municipal caucus of the Municipal Council. I had a 5:30 p.m. start, and the clock on my cell phone is showing 5:37. May I have a roll call for the commencement of this caucus? Councilperson Ridley.
Present.
Councilperson Prince Ari.
Present. Airy.
I asked. Oh, I can't believe I blew that. I'm so sorry.
So close.
Airy. Councilperson Baggiano. Councilperson Yun.
Here.
Councilperson Solomon.
Here.
Councilperson Robertson.
Here.
Councilperson Rivera.
Here.
Councilperson Waterman.
Here.
And Council President Lavaro.
Here.
We have all 9 council members present. And what you have in front of you, council members, you have 2 replacements, 1 addition, and the claims and addendum that were delivered today. Okay? So I'm going to turn it over to Council President Lavaro.
Before we begin, if we could take a moment of silence. We lost a Jersey City police officer, Lieutenant Christopher Robital. Thank you.
If you can please silence all your cell phones, I'd appreciate it. Council Press?
Sure. So let's begin by saying welcome, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome back to all the council members, and to the newest council members, welcome to your first caucus meeting. Let's get right at it. Okay. So we're going to be covering the agenda, but before we begin, and actually, because of inquiry with Councilwoman Ridley regarding the rules of order, I know the city clerk has already shared that with all the new members, I believe. And these are the council rules of order, the kind of the bylaws, as you should say, in terms of how we governs our process and order in the meetings and so forth. So. Wanted to share that with everyone on the City Council. For the new members of the council, if you haven't reviewed it already with regard to, I know Robert Byrne, the city clerk, provided that, but for the new members as well, the old members, returning members, it's good to kind of refresh yourself on this stuff. And I know in speaking to other members of the council that there's an interest, along with Councilwoman Ridley, but other members of the council in amending some of these rules of order, which we can do in.
Because you should know.
What's that?
If there's anything that is not covered in these rules of order, just so you know, the council is actually governed not by Robert's rules, but by the rules of the House of Representatives of the United States. The rules are like this. I have never heard anybody refer to them with any intelligence, but that covers most things. But occasionally, when you would look to those rules for guidance.
Okay. So let's begin with our to-be newly appointed directors or nominated or directors. And we'll begin with HEDC and the current Deputy Mayor, Marcos Vigil, who the mayor is nominated for Director of HEDC. Anyone have any? Marcos, you want to come on up? You know everybody here, I think.
I think at some point I've met everyone. And the director is here for...
Just himself. That's going to be on the agenda.
Oh. Do you have something on the agenda as well?
No. Just
Okay.
himself.
Just
himself.
So he's here for 10F.
Any questions of, so it's my understanding that the mayor reached out to particularly the new members of the council and let them know who was being appointed in advance. If you had any questions, to reach out to these appointees. Anyone have any questions of Deputy Mayor?
Acting actually director of HDC, right?
Yeah. That's a Friday acting.
Okay, you're acting now. Congratulations.
So now we have experienced HDC the past 4 years. So I'd like to hear from you, as a new will be the director of the HDC. If you find out, and if you say something about current HDC, what is the use most problem current HDC? And if you be director, what is your plan to correct that problem? How we can moving forward? So the way you tell the mayor, can't you, explain to us your plans and what do you feel like most of the problem is the HDC, current HDC?
Well, I think that, first of all, obviously, I appreciate the confidence that the mayor has in me in appointing me to this role and position. I think that overall we have a very committed staff over at HEDC. We have professionals that are recognized for the work that they do.
Are we doing an interview process now?
If they want to ask questions.
And from my perspective, also from my interaction with the department, I have to make it clear that it was my personal experience that Director Cruz showed over time a commitment to public service as well as a great love for the city, and for that I appreciate the time that he served. I just hope to be working more closely with each one of you as going forward, as you know, through the planning department with which I had a lot more interaction than most other divisions during my 3 years. We made sure that we were communicating better with the public, that we were communicating with each one of you, given your positions for your wards and as representatives of the city. So I hope that we can continue that. Obviously, there will be opportunities perhaps to look at the department and look at its current structure and see how we can improve what we have there. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to sit down and analyze the budget and analyze each and every one of the positions. So to the extent that I have recommendations as to improving staffing in certain areas, that's something that I will look at. I think that we can do definitely a better job overall in terms of enforcement throughout. That is something that I think that we can all agree. At times it may have been just lack of staffing, lack of resources, other priorities that were coming along. But that will be something that I would like to focus on. I think that we have a great opportunity to make sure that what we have on the books we enforce, and perhaps to the extent that with the recommendations from staff, we find other areas where we can improve and make recommendations. To the extent that that needs a new ordinance, I will make that recommendation to the BA, to the mayor, and to the council and go for that. But for the most part, I think that the one thing that I will focus would be mostly what my role is in terms of communicating with you and communicating to the public and making sure that the public has confidence in who is leading that division.
Plans to kind of streamline the process, because the process over there, like I get a lot of complaints about the process. Like when one inspector go, like let's say a plumber goes out and inspect, all right, and cite the person for whatever reason. Then what happens is they don't send the same plumber.
Mm-hmm.
So
and that is what I'm. That's what I talk in terms of looking at the enforcement part of the department. There may be open positions that we need to look at. There may be roles that we have to shift people and make sure that people are in the right roles that they serve, where they can use their skills to improve. So that's something that will definitely work with HR, work with each one of the division directors to identify what are the missing parts and make sure that, as you said, when we talk streamline, I know that for when people talk about HEDC and streamlining, they're talking about the overall department, but there are different divisions to the department. So what I would say, which has been a focus of our administration from the beginning across the city, but particularly in HEDC going forward, is that we're going to try to break down silos. Because if I'm an inspector with a certain role in one division, but I happen to crisscross or see something that may affect my division, or maybe even it's something that I should bring to the attention of the health department, I shouldn't keep it within the four walls of my role. I should feel confident enough that I'm going to have the support from above, that I can bring these matters up and that they will be dealt with, and that we work as a team. I think that HEDC, every staff member in HEDC should see themselves in the role of being a member of HEDC and not necessarily of the division. Similarly, seeing their roles to the extent that it's a role that has to do with public safety or healthcare, or the welfare of the city as a whole, bring it up the chain so that we can address it with the right divisions within the city and break those silos. I think the communication can continue to improve throughout, and we can definitely use the resources that we have to make it happen.
Let me add to one thing. 2015, what the late and the 2016, this council approved that the hire consulting company to try to find out the solution for and the permit processing, so and so. Actually, Councilwoman Joyce Warren pointed out, and still we didn't see any actually some kind of working plan yet. And I can say that, like special building department, they have a whole lot better than years ago. They have a huge improvement is there, but still not enough. You know what I'm saying? So what is your plan to how we can implement the plans, what the consulting company pointed out, the problem and issue what we have?
Well, the first thing is, and many of you probably had access to the report, is that the company itself identified not everything in the report needed to be done or was necessarily doable based on what, maybe the budgetary plans and what the budgetary necessities of the city are at the time. But we definitely started implementing some of the aspects of the most critical aspects of HEDC, and we will continue to monitor that. Definitely one of the improvements that we can continue to make are our investments in technology and how that platform works with other platforms. But we have to make sure, based on my experience, we have to make sure that we don't continue to go down the path of investing in new technology, because technology continues to change exponentially every year. And it's better to look at the particular functions that an individual does and see how those functions can be complemented by functions that someone else is doing, and then take it one step at a time. And that is something that I plan to do with each one of the division directors going forward, and then seeing how that matches then with the type of technology that can make their jobs easier.
See, another major concern for people of Joyce City and whoever build the new buildings or renovation time, actually inspection problem is a major concern. One is that actually Councilwoman Joyce Warren pointed out, if you do that, like today, first like a plumbing inspector show up, and he point out 5 different violations. When they finish that those jobs, and when a re-inspection required, different inspectors show up. He point out another 5. So that's one of the reasons. It's not only plumbing, electric, you name it, and the fire. So we gotta bring up some way to every inspector have a certain location that is responsible for their location. So in other words, if Ward B, Ward C, Ward D, certain inspector as responsible, or each plumber inspector do that the first initial inspection, then their inspector should be stay there till they finish the project. So it's not make the people get frustrating, because so that major issues. I think those kind of improved plan we're looking for from your leadership building.
Yeah, that's a very common type of complaint that I personally have heard as well throughout the years. I think that at times there may be reasons that are legitimate as to why that doesn't happen. Personal, the homeowner or the developer may only be available to be at the site at a particular time, and that it's not necessarily the time that works for the inspectors, because after all, we're a large city. We're not a small town like they used to sometimes. But those situations, we should try to isolate them as much as possible, and definitely try to work on a more regular schedule. I'll definitely sit down with Ray Meyer and discuss better ways of improving that calendaring. I know that ever since Althea Bernstein has been in the department, those type of complaints have continued to go down, because she has been better able to manage how that whole process is working and having better communications with everyone on the managerial side. So definitely, to the extent that it continues to be tweaked, we'll work on that. To the extent that we can make improvements in the technology, either upgrades or anything else that may be available. Using application tools, perhaps, that may be available on individual cell phones, just to have better communications. All those things are going to be on the table, and again, continue to have those communications going forward.
And this is a good year at 2018. If the building department required to upgrade computer systems or any iPads or so and so. I think that this is time, speak with Bob K to allocate some dollars, capital improvement.
But
So maybe
again,
we
but
can-
going to that, before we make any recommendations on, new technology or anything like that, I would like to have, be able to sit down and look at the processes individually. And to the extent that we can tweak processes, to the extent that the law or the, existing regulations allow us to, make those improvements before we make any commitments citywide
Great.
for new technology.
Thank you, really.
I'd like to sit down with you during the week, and I'll give you some examples of where there's no enforcement whatsoever, and what's going on is a disgrace. All right, Marcus?
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Councilman Robinson?
Marcus, are you gonna be operating in a dual role? Or are you still gonna be the deputy mayor as well as the director?
As to this department, I mean, the title would be deputy mayor. This position in Newark, New York City, it's a deputy mayor position, but it's limited to this role. So I definitely don't have jurisdiction over any of my colleague directors that are here. But the reason for that is to continue to have the opportunity to sit down with particularly as it respects to new development with developers that come in that may be looking at incentives that the city would like to bring, so that I can make the proper recommendations to the mayor and to the council. Otherwise, for example, when the applications for pilot agreements are coming in, that allows me to look at the applications and make recommendations for you guys in terms of policy. Except only limited to HEDC and only limited to the functions that are within HEDC.
Okay, so now Bob K and the acting director have to respond. That we transfer $85,000 to HEDC director's office. So why they transfer $85,000 to HE director's office?
That was for a CDBG bill. There was an attorney we hired last year to work on the HUD audit.
Yes.
And then it extended into different areas. Community development was funding it, but they ran out of admin money. We had transferred that money incorrectly into the law department's budget at the December meeting. So we're correcting it, pulling it out of the law department and giving it to the HEDC director to process the final payment for that lawyer. I think his name's Otto Hensel was the name of the lawyer.
So
That was it. Yeah, it's all part of that HUD audit.
Thank you.
Excuse my ignorance, there's a dual role come with a dual salary? No. Okay, just wanted to be clear. All right. One last question is for you, let's say you're in the position for 4 years, how will you define a successful 4-year tenure?
I would guess that it would be based on the feedback that we get from the community, from what they are seeing right now to what would they see at the end. But definitely it would be to the extent that we can streamline some of the processes, to the extent that we can have better communication with the public. That's to the extent that we can also implement and put together certain policies where people are not guessing what they're walking into when they're walking into HEDC. That's definitely one, and at least from the priorities that we want to see in terms of the administration is seeing the development of MLK, where we're sitting over at the hub, happen over the course of those 4 years, and definitely continue to see improvements and developments on the south and western side of the city.
I'll just make a comment, which is just for the public record, that my approach to this, appointments for directors, is that the mayor should kind of generally be able to appoint the people that he wants to lead his departments in that regard. But the council should definitely vet and make sure that the folks are qualified, and you certainly are. That's indisputable, I think, in that regard. And then secondly, I guess I would say that, and making sure that there's nothing in a person's history or background that might make them, disqualify them from the position. With that being said, I have no questions. I just have a comment, which is, as you take the role, I raised this at the last council meeting, and I'll raise it in this one and in future ones. The Office of Tenant and Landlord Relations, you need to bolster that office with additional funding, staffing, inspectors, and to be able to aggressively address our rent control issues and inspecting for these units and out there, the buildings that are uninhabitable by Jersey City residents, and that we need to pursue this more aggressively going forward into 2018, because it's been, I think for most council people would say, an outcry about affordability throughout Jersey City, and so this is an area where we can really, I think, put our resources and make sure that we address the issue strongly. Okay? Thank you. Any other questions for?
No, good luck.
Good luck.
Top job.
Director Flanagan, she is being nominated for her reappointment. And she is 10, what is it, 10E? And then she also has 10Z.
10Z, she is a resolution of the Municipal Council of the City of Jersey City accepting a grant and authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with the County of Hudson Department of Health and Human Services Office of Aging.
So we'll tackle 10Z first, I guess. So support services?
Yeah, so that's just the Division of Senior Affairs that pays for socialization, athletics, movies, et cetera, busing, and then the subsidies for senior congregate meals and Meals on Wheels, and then the weekend Meals on Wheels for those that are in greater need, and then this. Yeah. Oh, this is the disability, peer grouping disability. This offsets any and all of those programs when we run out of money. Because the county only pays for 75% of it. Then there's this additional money for people with disabilities that need help that are under the age of 60. So if they need Meals on Wheels or congregate meals, but they're not yet 60, then this covers it.
Okay. So turning to 10E, I guess?
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Sure.
How does the county allocate between Jersey City, Harris, and East Norwood?
Doesn't. So they just divide by the total counties, the total cities. So while we have over, 30,000 seniors, and that's the total population of Caucus, they get the same amount of money. So when I get phone calls from seniors that complain that in Caucus they go to Broadway shows and we can't afford to take every senior to Broadway shows, those are the things that I deal with on a daily basis.
Any other questions on that item? Okay. So the director is up for reappointment for 4 more years. For the returning council people, Dr. Director Flanagan and the work she's done for Health and Human Services.
While there's still skunks in the city, Bocciano is not happy with my service.
New director was continued director, whatever you call. So give me some 3 things you accomplished and you're proud of the past 3 years.
So I think the first thing that I think we accomplished was actually reorganizing the department, creating the divisions that were necessary to have more accountability for division directors so that they knew what their true role was, and aligned the grants across the department to become a part of the responsibility and budgeting for each division director. So I think a big part of that is staffing and reorganization, professional development, training. The second is, I believe in the last 4 years, I've probably brought to the table almost $3 million new dollars to the city. Everything from small $500 grants to what I will present to you at the next meeting, an additional $704,000 for child-led prevention poisoning programming, and expanding the work to make the health department more community-friendly. So when I got there, by the way, if you don't know, in my prior job, I would call the health department here and not get through, and I was working on a grant on the other side of the river that we wound up utilizing on this side of the river. And I think there's a lot of staff that are out in the field, but there wasn't a lot of support staff internally that were supporting the field staff and the work that they were doing. So now we have more people sort of in the right roles that could manage through that. And I think the third, a nod from Michelle Obama is helpful. So our invitation to the White House for the work that we did, being the first city in the state of New Jersey and the whole region too, which is New York, New Jersey, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico, to get all 5 gold medals for the Let's Move campaign, I think is, about the staffing and the teamwork and building the team together.
Goal to achieve?
The goal. So I think I started talking about this a few months ago, really taking a look at the mental health concerns that we're dealing with across the city. I think you all have received an email thus far about our mental health first aid, our first workshop that we'll be hosting on February 1st. And that's part of a grant that we received from the New Jersey Healthcare Quality Institute. And then focusing on violence as a health issue. So really taking a look at all the organizations that are out in the field that are doing some of this work, but without the support and the trained staff that are needed to kind of get into some of the right places. So we have a lot of, anxious volunteers willing to do the work, but there's not a lot of frameworks involved with that. So we've been working with a lot of one-off mini grants to groups across the city, but we're putting that all together and doing an overview with the Center for Court Innovation to hopefully come out with an RFP sometime in the summer so that we can fund grants that don't fit into the CSBG framework that are doing work around health by another name, and that's a lot of youth engagement, self-awareness, a lot of confidence building, anti-bullying efforts, and I think you'll see in the next few months the new partnership portal, a website that we've been working on. Actually, Mira, when she worked with us at the health department, helped prepare an RFP with the money from Robert Wood Johnson. We're planning to roll that out in March with opening up RFPs for mini grants to community organizations that meet the 6 major health needs of the city, which have come out of a lot of the research that we've been doing over the last few years, and kind of driving this continued approach of leveraging the city dollars to make the community work better together so that we can figure out where we're partnering. I work very closely with all the department directors on the work that they're doing and where it intersects our work. So if it's the chaplaincy program or some effort related to, and obviously Lieutenant Robitaille is a perfect example. We worked with him very closely on the Mayor's Quality of Life Task Force. My staff is, equally shocked and dealing in that, or with HEDC, because over the last 2 weeks we've been getting a lot of calls about frozen pipes and no water is a health issue if it lasts for over 4 hours, and so where my staff jump in when it's outside of the hands of another inspector.
And Councilman Robbins is waiting patiently.
We're moving to the, first, congratulations. We're moving to the new City Hall annex allow you to do anything better or more efficient?
I think it will enable us to serve more community residents. Right now, where we are located, there's very limited public transportation, and with the 139, there was much less because it's right in that area, so we only have one bus that takes you over to where the campus is, and then the difficulty of parking there. We've seen a dip in all of our clinical services, so we're looking forward to getting to the hub to see if that helps increase our clinical work.
Okay, so then, as a council, can I ask you 2 things as a wish list at 2018, the next 4 years? Number 1 is that the senior center, 20 Patterson Street, they're only very limited hours they open, and that's why it's a lot of senior program, evening programs, Lego programs in my district. So I'd like to have come up with some idea to more utilize around the 3,000 square feet senior building in 28 Patterson Street. That's number one. Number two is Meals and Wheels program. Because when I heard the complaint from the people didn't receive the meal, and your answer was their drivers not show up, sick, so and so. So, because one driver not show up the job, then probably 20, 30 senior cannot have meals on time. So I like you have, because we don't hear that excuse many times already. So now on, you gotta come up with some plan B. If we driver not show up, you gotta somebody have to replace that the place. So provide some meals and program on time, you know?
Yeah, so that's something that you'd have to address with the union, because I can't have a per diem employee come in and do the job of a union employee. So just to give you like a really clear, and I'm going to send something out on Wednesday related to the bus scheduling and protocols and how that works, so that you're really clear. And then the Meals on Wheels. The Meals on Wheels that we provide are 5 or 7 meals. 5 meals for a homebound senior, 7 meals for a frail homebound senior. We do not provide breakfast, and we give them a time frame between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m., and we deliver 5 days a week, and we deliver frozen meals. It's a lunch or a dinner, and we do not serve breakfast. So I know that you were confused about some of that. So we had 4 drivers and 2, for a long time we had 4 drivers and 2 assessment team members. With the change that the county has, because they've come down kind of pretty hard, we're the largest program in the state of New Jersey. Most cities do this with volunteers. We do this with paid staff that happen to be union, that happen to have really large benefit plans. So the cost of doing this work costs us a significant amount of salary dollars. So if a driver, and I think probably the lowest paid driver I have maybe makes $40,000 a year, plus their benefits, plus the fact that they get somewhere between 15 and 30 vacation days a year and 15 sick days. When I had 4 drivers, that was fine, but I needed to move one of those drivers into a role of data entry because we needed to get the data to the county in order for us to get paid. We don't have any new money to do that. We've not gotten, yeah.
Just to get to, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, you're looking for a commitment to improving the utilization of the senior center and the Meals on Wheels program to that end, and I think you're just looking for assurances around that.
Yeah, well, that comes with more funding, and if you're willing to do that, then that would be helpful. And
how are we going to be eliminate that problem? That's
yeah,
right.
and I'm working with Jeremy on the senior center vision.
Any councilman didn't hear that, because of that, the driver not show up, didn't get the meal. I think that's enough for the.
I think that's just, they still get their meal, they just get it like an hour or 2 later than planned.
Yeah, so whatever it is, okay?
They still get it.
All right, good.
So, I don't want to have to put it in.
Thank you, Director Flanagan. And next we have Director Stamato. He is 10.
He is 10I.
10I, he also has 10Z1.
And
so why don't we start with 10Z1?
10Z1 is a resolution accepting grant funds for the 2015 recycling tonnage grant from New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection for the city of Jersey City.
Right. First of all, good evening, everyone. Good evening. This is a grant that we received from the New Jersey DEP in reference to the recycling for 2015. It's roughly $306,935.94. This is through the recycling program that we have in the city. This is between the curb pickups, other recycling initiatives that we have been doing and looking to expand upon in the next coming years.
Questions, Council, on this grant?
Yes, sir.
Robinson?
Not on the grant per se, but I have a senior that lives on McDougal Street. It's probably a street with about 5 houses. And she calls me every Monday, and I'm sure she calls DPW every single Monday because we leave her recycling out there. Now, this is a private company that picks up our recycling?
That's correct. It's a company that the city entered into a contract roughly about 3 years ago for both the garbage services and the curbside recycling.
Right, so DPW does a great job every Monday afternoon going by and picking up her recycling. Is there anything that we can do to reach out to that company to make sure that they at least drive down McDougal Street? It's a small street with about 5 houses.
Councilman, we have been reaching out to that company. We've had a number of meetings with that company. Not because when I started a year ago, but it has improved. We are still applying pressure on that company to perform and hold up to the contract according to the specs. This is regional. The contract expires in 2 years, but it has a 30-day out clause on that contract.
Now, what are we going to do? Just keep picking up our recycling?
No, what we're looking at, to be honest with you, Councilman, is another alternative site to bring our recycling, looking at the prospect of picking it up as what they refer to as commingled material, where you would have one truck pick up everything instead of source separated. Right now, we're picking up bottles and cans, and then we're picking up our paper separately. So we're looking at the possibility, if this works out, which we should know shortly, to basically pick everything up with one truck, and maybe even having DPW do that and eliminate that aspect from the contract. So there's a lot of things that we are working on. Coming from that industry and doing that work in that industry, in the private industry for a number of years, so I'm pretty well familiar with it. And also participating on the recycling law back when. So I feel that's where the future is going to be for us.
So we can handle it?
Yes. I wouldn't have anything, believe me, I'm as much in favor of doing as much in-house as possible, but I don't want to overtake something where we wouldn't be able to perform.
Okay, if we do that, will that increase the employee salaries or change titles?
It should, a possibility of increasing employee salaries, but basically with what we have in our force now, I feel we can do it, because we're looking at really roughly about 9 trucks. We're doing it now. So whatever they miss, we pick up.
Now, will we need to buy any extra equipment? I know I see the trucks that's half one side, but...
That was bought before I came. That would be one of the aspects that we would be looking at, that kind of a vehicle. But if we go with single source, then a regular normal garbage truck would be able to pick everything up and bring it locally. Right now, we're traveling out to Passaic, New Jersey, to bring our recycling, or the contractor is going out to Passaic, New Jersey, for the recycling.
There's a lot of things to consider before we
Well,
venture
yes.
into something like this.
Believe me, if we're gonna do,
I debate this all the time.
we
so.
have many discussions on it, but it's early. We're in the, right now, what we're doing is trying to get the garbage contractor or the recycling contractor, it's one and the same, to perform according to the contract.
I get the same phone call every week.
What I would suggest to the council on that, when you do get, and you do this, to call me. The more contact I have with the council, the more I can perform on my end as far as reaching out to our necessary people.
Why they don't do it? I mean, because this is a constant thing. I don't understand why they don't do it.
Joyce, I've had a number of meetings with them, and I don't want to tell you where I'm at with them right now with the verbiage, but the point is getting across.
Right. They can't meet us? Could we ask them to meet the council or something?
I tell you what, I could set a meeting up with the council members.
Okay.
We can have it at the DPW, if you choose, and basically you can bring up the issues to them.
Okay.
You know, I know that there is an invitation right now to the new council members and to the council members to come down and learn about DPW, what we're doing, what projects we're working on. So that'll be coming up shortly.
Instead of DPW,
Bring
anywhere.
Bring them here. I can bring them.
Caucus and make it, make it.
Councilman, wherever you want me to bring them, I'm sure they'll go.
Bring here.
Get it on caucus.
If you don't mind.
No, not at all.
It'd be best if you brought it out of Caucus,
Not
so
a
we
problem.
wouldn't violate anything with the sunshine law.
Right.
Especially
I
if
think
you're gonna
I
bring
think that would be a
everybody.
great idea, you're right. Sorry, that's, okay.
Councilman Son.
Question about the $300,000. What do you intend to use the money for?
Well, that basically goes into the cities. I look at Bob for that. We don't really keep the money, DPW.
It'll be a revenue source within the budget that will be used to offset some of the recycling contract. So it's a budget offset.
Correct.
Okay, so then the director is also being reappointed, and for a 4-year term. How many years did you serve?
A little over 1 year.
So I think most of the returning council members had the opportunity to work with Director Stamato and for any of the new members. Any questions or?
Go Army, sink Navy. Goodbye.
Thank you for your good
Let's
job.
make it some
Continue, right?
The seasonal workers, what are we doing to improve? Because some of them been seasonal like for 4 years. What are we doing to progress them?
We are looking at that right as we
Okay.
speak before this meeting. And there has been some indications that those people are going to be becoming what they consider to be full-time employees.
A settlement agreement pending with the union right now, addressing this very issue. Yes.
Keep the good work, that's what, yes.
Okay.
No fornication, yeah.
Before we go there.
Good luck.
Questions for the director? Hearing none. Pat, congratulations, thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
We now have Director Mark Bunbury. Oh, I'm sorry, Deputy Director Mark Bunbury being nominated by the mayor to serve as the Director of Human Resources. And at the end of 2017, Nancy Ramos retired. And so Mark is here with us tonight. Mark, would you like to say anything in advance? Or?
Yes?
You've got Z12, right?
Yes.
You've got a couple things on the
Yes,
agenda.
Z12 and Z18.
Z12.
is a resolution authorizing the city to award a contract to Career Building Employment Screening LLC for background check services.
Yeah, this is just essentially the normal contract we enter into to have a outside vendor perform background checks for all new hires and also any interns or volunteers that work with the city.
They're going to do over 1,300 screenings, correct?
Roughly, I would say,
Hope not,
maybe not this year.
I can't afford it.
The contract, that's what it says.
For
If they go over that, I'm just curious, because I see it's allotted a certain amount of money here.
Right. Well, a part of it is also every summer when we do the summer seasonals, we have to run all of them again on top of the normal hiring that we do every year. So roughly that amount, we usually go a little bit higher just to cover ourselves. I think that's an overestimate, but we'd rather go in a little bit higher than go over the amount and then have to come back to council to do a change order.
So if they go over 1,300 screenings, that means we have to increase the pay, correct?
When you say the pay-
Based on the 1,300 screenings is allotted a certain amount of money here, right? Like, so I'm asking if it's over that, 1,300, we would have to increase, it would have come back to the council to increase the contract payment? Because you're allotting so much money just for that.
Correct. But again,
Go ahead.
It would only have to go to the council if the change order exceeds 20% of the original contract. So if it's just a minimal increase, it will not come back to council.
Okay.
Any other questions on 10Z12? Hearing none. 10Z18.
17 too, right?
Oh, 17?
17 and 18.
17.
Is a resolution authorizing the change order to increase the amount of the contract between the City of Jersey City and PS Administrative Services to administer the flexing spending account, COBRA notices, and retiree billing.
17.
Any questions?
10Z17, yes.
Okay.
Now, this was an example of what
This is a
would come back
third-party
to the council.
vendor
It's
who,
more than 20%.
collects funding from the retirees for the retiree benefits, for the dental benefits, for those who participate in the flexible spending account. The request for the increase was due to a change in the dental contract last year. The prior broker was collecting these fees, and it was inappropriate for the broker to collect it. So we pulled that out of the new broker's contract. So it's more of a checks and balances. So we added that service to this contract. That's why we're going up a little bit higher.
Any questions for Director, Deputy Director on 10Z18? Are you acting director? I don't know.
I think I'm just deputy director.
You're deputy, all right. 10Z18, okay. That's everything, Robert.
10Z18 is a resolution authorizing a professional service agreement with CarePoint Health Medical Group to conduct medical examinations of civilian and ununiformed employees and applicants for employment.
So this is essentially the service that we have for any new hire to go through their employee physical and drug screening. In addition, they are the medical provider. We have, if any issues come up with, for example, any drug testing that needs to be done for employees, our police and fire new hires also go through CarePoint as well for their health screenings. And we anticipate the contract being about $178,000 this year.
I have a question. Did this RFP get open to the other hospitals? Like, I mean, you know, it's either hospitals or other doctors that can, you know, that have the facilities to do that.
Public advertised. So we had two. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. We had two responses, one from Concentra and one from CarePoint, and CarePoint was substantially lower than.
But CarePoint and Concentra looks like they're both here, so that's concern number one. But I'm surprised that an entity like Medical Center didn't jump on this, you know. So I'm wondering if we could give them the opportunity to bid on it. I mean, we could definitely, you know, the contract will still keep on going, you know, with CarePoint. Maybe, you know, we should like table this until the following meeting so that we could have somebody like an entity like Medical Center to actually.
You would have to have reason to reject these bids and to rebid it out.
Can you give us a copy of the people who bid it out? Like, I would like to see that Medical Center bid it for the spot and didn't, you know, came like.
They didn't respond.
They said they didn't respond.
They did not respond.
So how was it, I think the question is, yes, that's the question, how was it advertised?
It's on BidSync.
There are only two responses.
Right. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the answer. How is it advertised?
Question, how is it advertised?
It's a public procurement program we have. It's called
Folks, one at a
BidSync.
BidSync.
Correct.
Councilman Young.
Check with the if I was to go on the BidSync right now, I wouldn't see that it was offered there. So that's a concern to me. If I was a vendor and I would go under, you know, and go into BidSync and, you know, go into the category where it says healthcare facility / vendors, I would not see that there was, I wouldn't see it. So I wouldn't know if I was, you know, again, a doctor or medical center, you know. I mean, no, I mean.
The deadlines have passed.
Right.
When was the deadline?
Well, that's all prescribed on the website.
It was in December was the deadline. And what happens, when we put a procurement on BidSync, every vendor who's registered with that commodity code, you know, that service, it automatically gets emailed to them. So they get immediate notification. Other people who are not part of that system are allowed to register or go onto the site. They have to register and download the RFP.
Do you know if Medical Center got the email? Or are they on there?
I don't know. I mean, I could check tomorrow for you and check with purchasing on that.
So, could you just detail?
But you're skirting a gray area here because you're trying to cancel a bid to funnel it to a certain vendor, especially being a.
That's why I was careful in saying in other doctors that do qualify and have the facilities for it. It doesn't just have to be Medical Center, but I'm concerned that if a new vendor wants this, you know, because, you know, to be honest with you, there's, if you speak to the police, fire, and city workers, they're not happy with the services that CarePoint provides. So we have to make sure that, you know, everybody, you know, has an opportunity for this.
Well, let me clarify that CarePoint has two contracts with the city. There's one contract with workers' comp and one contract with us with new hires, which I think are very different because they're performing very different services. We don't interact with them at all with the workers' comp side of it. We only interact with them on mostly the new hire side of it for HR.
All right, two separately publicly bid projects. I think workers' comp awarded a contract in the fall. Maybe Matthew, does it ring a bell?
Can I?
Okay, yeah.
Matthew, I'm sorry, Matthew, did you have a response?
there's an issue pending with the insurance fund,
On what?
award of a contract. So there has not been a
The
new
other CarePoint contract?
Right, it has not been awarded yet.
Okay. Councilman Yun.
See, I see that the price CarePoint to provide the city of Jersey City, but I didn't see the other company, you know. So what kind of price is difference? You just give us a one. CarePoint.
I can provide you actually the summary of the cost for the consensus plans and also for this. We did provide that previously, but I can provide it to you if you want to see the difference. There is roughly, I believe, about a $50,000 difference between what Concentra was quoted us at and what CarePoint. Correct, higher, correct.
The reason is that I think not only myself, most council members feel uncomfortable is that CarePoint is actually one of the most expensive medical charge in United States, not the state of New Jersey. That's number one. Number two, CarePoint to sue City of Jersey $10 million. We just months ago, not even less than months ago, we settled the case $8 million. So I think now myself, council member itself, feel is very uncomfortable to company who sue us $10 million with a high medical bills, you know? And we should be some kind of punishment then, even though 50,000 some other company higher than this one, we should do some different direction we should take, but we cannot do that. Right? I know.
Thank you for adding
I know.
that at the end. Thank you very much, because you cannot do that. Absolutely not.
We wish, you know what I'm saying? We wish, but we cannot do that. Okay, fine.
It's a publicly bid contract, and if you don't want to award the contract, you have to articulate some reasonable, defensible reason not to award it. For example, if it was quadruple what the estimate was, or something has come to your attention that all the people were indicted or something. But I mean, you can't just whimsically do that. It's bid.
So why bid sync it then? Why can't we just put it and put it public in a newspaper and advertise it? Why does it have to go into a channel that it's difficult for people to actually?
The industry is very accustomed to this is a much easier process for them. In fact, they can submit bids digitally, can they not?
Right.
So all of the documentation
And I should add that CarePoint did have this contract last year, but prior to that, it was with Alpine Medical Services. So it's not just been CarePoint for the past however many years. So.
In other words, if we see the purchase department, any department that if they have only limit of people participating bid, then the department agency do soliciting the contact with other vendors to try, this is things going on, why don't you or apply for or submit your proposal. They do, but seems like to us, those kind of effort is missing, seems like not your department, human resource department missing that effort, you know what I'm saying? Because if we see through this one, some case that request for proposed qualification, they solicited the different vendors, you know. But this case, we missing that effort from your side. That's why we feel uncomfortable also too.
When you say you're missing what effort from our side?
See, in other words, you can contact, the way the Councilman Daniel Rivera say, you can contact with that other vendors that this kind of things is a bidding going on. If you're interested, please participate. You can make a recommendation or solicit with the other vendors, you know what I'm saying?
So it is my understanding, and I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that it would not be proper for us to be sending individual emails out to businesses about the contract. Yeah. Right. Correct.
to send it to somebody.
Right.
Who says, now you're only sending it to your friends, you're only sending it to insiders.
Councilman Robinson.
On the same, on the resolution. So why we didn't do that for this one?
I can provide you the full bid. I'm happy to provide
No, I
you
mean-
the full quote on the bid.
I mean, we usually do that, right?
State the.
Yeah, who bid?
For it, how much they bid.
No, I'm happy to provide you that. If that's an issue, I can provide you the full quote.
We normally do that for professional services.
Right.
We do that when we're doing a standard RFP where the lowest bidder is how we're awarding the contract. That's why it's a bit different. But if you have information, if you have questions on the packet, You can obviously always see that.
Yes.
That's why we don't usually do that.
Just a procedural, I mean, can we add the bids for professional services contracts? It would certainly be.
You can, but it's not the same thing. Usually what we do is we list the top 3 lowest bidders and then explain why, if we're not going with the absolute lowest bidder, why. That's how we do it. With some of these bids, and this one, it would be easy because there's not a lot of contenders, but like, for instance, if I put a lawyer up, I'm bidding on a list, and I keep a list, and then we select from the list. So it's not analogous the way it operates.
Okay.
But again, I'm happy to provide you the full quote for Concentra as well. It's not a problem. Yeah.
Now, you're assuming there may be vendors who just don't want to bid on this contract for many reasons. Just because they didn't bid doesn't mean that they wanted to, if, you know, or they would have.
Okay. Now we are at 10G, which is the resolution approving the appointment of Mark Bunbury as Director of the Department of Human Resources.
So I do think I'm familiar with and have interacted with most of the people on the council here, whether through prior council hearings or other matters. I want to say first, I'm very grateful to the mayor for selecting me for this position, and also to Nancy Ramos, who was the former director, who I worked with very closely for the past 2.5 years, who I've learned so much from, and I consider it an honor to be able to be here today in this position. In terms of HR, again, like I said, I think I've spoken about what it is that we're trying to do in our department with all of you through prior council hearings or otherwise, but my main focus and our main focus in HR right now is our vision. And our vision is really to build a responsive, professional, 21st century public sector HR department. And that's what we've been doing for the past 2.5 years, and that's what I want us to continue doing for the next 4. I'm happy to answer any specific questions that people have about what it is that we've been doing, our successes, and where we want to go in the next 4 years, if there are particular questions, or I can just get into that.
Sure. So number 1, do we have a manual book for the city employee?
Yes.
Okay, so every city employee has one book of each, right? So they know what are their duties or whatever is so and so. And the second thing is this one. This is actually every time when we have a budget hearing, we bring up issues that the difference of pay is a big difference. You know, so how are we going to correct the problem what we have?
So I think one of
to make people that didn't understand the new council people, what they that people work the city government 20 years still make $40,000-$50,000, but people just move in their department make more than far that people work 20-30 years because of different the pay style. The years of like $330, 3.35 cents was a minimum, then go up. That today is like $7-8 or so, you know what I'm saying? So those kind of problems, yeah. So those kind of issue has a problem. There's actually the down the moral in the city government, the city employee. So what was the plan? So we bring up the issue actually 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the larger issues that we have to really deal with is the salary structure in the city, or really a lack thereof of a solid salary structure that is, number 1, market-based, right? There should be a basis for why we set salaries at a certain range. In most organizations, they are going to look at what the market would pay for that salary. A little bit more difficult for us as a public sector entity because we can't pay maybe what the private sector pays, but many entities will just say, all right, our goal is to be 30% of market. That's our goal. So I think for step 1 of that is to actually create a salary structure for the city. We haven't updated our labor grades in about 30 years. And obviously when you have a situation where there is no structure around how these things are set, it's going to cause issues, many issues. One of them is the one you talked about, where people are coming in at higher salaries and people below them aren't being moved up accordingly because now their salary should be maybe at this amount. But we don't have a structure in place to address that. So it certainly is my intention over the next 4 years for us to really sit down and try to address that problem, because it not only affects, I think, the employee themselves, but it affects the culture. How do you try to create a situation where people feel like they want to be motivated to do more and to work better when we don't have a structure in place with something that's a keystone like compensation to affect that? So that is definitely my intention over the next 4 years, to sit down and really make sure we're getting together the tools we need to get a salary structure in place.
What about civil service? What role does that play? Because I know sometimes they come in with different civil service titles, so
Yes.
automatically they have that. But the work that the person that's been there for 30 years, they're doing the same work, so the titles are a little different. So why can't we just switch titles? I'm just, curious.
So civil service in and of itself isn't involved with the salaries, right? So civil service, if we say, okay, we're advertising for a title of community relations specialist, whatever title, whatever salary they put in for that title is what the salary that we give them. So civil service isn't so directly involved in the salary part of it. They are involved in the title part of it. So the difficulty is us trying to manage staying within the confines of what civil service provides for a certain title, because the reality is the department has a lot of operations they're trying to get done, and sometimes it can be the situation where maybe similar people are doing similar work, but they're in different titles. So I think a part of it has to be maybe working more effectively with the managers, making sure they understand, what are the responsibilities of this person versus this person. They're not in the same title. Ideally, yes, there might be times when you need everybody to work together, but you're talking about different titles of different people, and they shouldn't be always the same. But to answer your question directly, civil service is not really directly involved with the salary. The salary is set by us.
Oh, we set the salary.
We set the salary.
So we keep getting these civil service title changes, because I know we approved quite a few of them. We setting their salary.
We set the salary.
I just want to make it clear.
Civil service does not set salaries for employees, yes. No.
The mayor sets the salary.
Let me say yes, we.
Yes.
No, not the council.
When he said, the council only sets the salaries of department directors, elected officials, and certain statutory officers. Salaries of everyone else are set by the mayor or by collective bargaining.
Two things are like this. Number one. Another one is actually, my office actually look at the social network side. One of the city employee and the city time and the uploading their Facebook, all those issues, we provide a 2-page list of that. And I got only one response from your office and from you that said, we'll take care of it. Now, would you tell me how would you take care of those person who use the city time to something, their personal things they done?
So, obviously I cannot speak on the record about a disciplinary matter. Right, it's a personnel matter, so I can't, we obviously investigated, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, so you can tell us now.
Right. It's a personnel matter. So if you or anybody else were to give me private information about an investigation, I can't speak about it here, but I'm happy if you want to know that we did investigate the matter, but I can't speak in detail about what occurred.
Number 3. Certain period of time, certain years, mayor, we know that he's executive, so he gives like a bonus pay or merit pay. And some people get 5,000, 10,000 increase. Some people get the 2,000, 3,000. So those kind of things, when we see that, they have no rules. You know what I'm saying? So if you elect appointed as a new director, how are you going to be control those kind of matters? How we have to control. So now we city council have to set up some rules and regulation. Mayor cannot increase or merit or bonus pay more than $3,000, they have to be noticed the city council 6 days prior to increase. Something, how we can control that pay increase, so not the penalty, it's a bonus increase.
Legal question.
Oh yeah.
That's more of a legal.
Legal? No, she said shake your head.
No, but what is your question?
So what is this?
He wants to control merit raises.
Yes.
That's what he's saying.
Well, I know, for example, the law department, and thanks to Jeremy for that we do an annual review. Actually, twice a year we started to do it, to evaluate employees. Not that we have had much money allocated to us to provide for raises, but in theory at least, we have evaluated employees, and that would be used as the basis, for example, to award increases, merit, or just outright increasing somebody's salary. I don't know what other departments do, but I would assume that's the model that everyone is headed for.
Right, and so I think to kind of move along what Joanne is saying is, we're talking about performance management, right? And how do we create, and we talked about this before, I think, in prior budget hearings, but how do you create a performance management system in the city that is going to reward employees based on the work that they do? So we don't really right now have a clearly defined system for that. And I will echo what the law department does and say in HR, we also instituted a similar thing in our division where we do sit down with our employees twice a year and go over our goals and their performance where they need to improve. But I think that we probably need to elevate that to a larger level and then tie those assessments to raises. I mean, that's in many organizations, that's how it operates, that's how it works. Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be here. But
Maybe you sit
your role.
I
I just want to give you the answer. Your role in the raises process is solely on a budgetary standpoint. Right. You guys approve the funds allocated to that line. That's your role. There is no mechanism for you to be involved in individual employee raises. In fact, it's impermissible. You are the legislative branch.
Yeah. So stop it. The way he make a definition, I want to make sure age of 2018, the bucket business should be very limited amount of putting that salary adjustment, other than contract increase. You know what I'm saying?
Our role is we can increase that though when it comes to the budget hearing.
But
correct?
we can control
That's
that.
our role.
That's your role.
That's
We gotta
our
just
role.
make sure that
So,
2018 budget, we gotta make sure that the salary adjustment have to be very, very minimum, because we cannot control that. Only we can control based on budget, then we should be that's way control, okay? Thank you. So we'll see that no salary adjustment to 2018 budget.
but that wouldn't be fair for the rest of the staff. What about the staff that's been here 30, 40 years?
So,
Councilman, he's one vote. That's his request.
So, because of that, it's just, she said, Councilwoman Joyce want to point out right. Because of that, if we want to increase, notice the city council 6 months prior to increase, so we know that what's going on. That's what I need to know, right? It's a fair?
You know, remember, most increases arise from collective bargaining. You collectively bargain for the salary, and that is by far the majority.
Bonus pay and the merit payment. That's why we want to control that one, okay? Not the country increase.
I think, if I may interject here, Deputy Director, I think if I'm hearing you correctly, Councilman Young, that you're looking for a commitment as Director to address these salary discrepancies and making sure that it's based on some sort of performance system as opposed to kind of an arbitrary, unknown reason why I think people get merit raises.
We don't want that somebody get increase at $10,000 increase, while other people contract increase only $1,000 a year. But we don't want just somebody because get the 10,000 increase because he wear the bow tie. We don't want this to happen like that.
Let me ask you something. I'm just curious here. How can you control, or if you, I don't know, this is just a question I have here. How can you control the directors if they are not evaluated on how can they get increases? I'm just curious because, you know, sometimes I get complaints that directors are nasty.
So,
you know, I'm just,
I
mean,
the form process.
because I know we can give more money, I got that, but when the directors are not functioning like they should, or they're treating the staff, you know, nasty, you know, they're getting raises still.
Yes.
Well, director salaries are set by ordinance.
Right.
I mean, department director, excuse me. So are we talking?
So how
Right.
can we, because what can we do when we get complaints that they're nasty? I just want to know, because I know this is an HR issue.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Department director, who then has to address it.
Some of these employees are just,
As the director.
they're having a hard time.
So,
You know, what can we do?
So report it to, so if it's a director, reporting it to the BA, right? If it's a department director.
Division director to that department's director, or to me as well, and then we can look into it. Look into it and see if it's valid, and then we discuss with HR about meeting with the employee, educating them in the proper way of handling situations. If disciplinary action is warranted, HR has been very good in issuing disciplinary action. It's up under Mark's leadership there.
Okay, it's up.
It's up significantly.
Yeah, I want to. I mean, obviously, I can't go into detail. Yeah, I can't. No.
Yeah.
Listen, I cannot go into obviously detail about specific people because it's a personnel matter. But I can tell you, sitting here in front of you, without a doubt, I have served discipline on directors, department directors, division directors, myself. So, it has, yes. Yeah.
So based on Bob K, you're doing a very good job. I give you credit for that. But now, the desk audit, City of Jersey planned desk audit 2013. Still today, almost 5 years past it, still they don't do not even once for the desk audit. Any plans to do desk audit to make sure that their job, they knows what is their job. Number two, they pay based on their job duties, you know, and those kind of things. So when you plan to do that Bob K, or you, who's the boss for that?
So you're saying you want to do a citywide desk audit? Yeah. So I would say
that's a large.
Yeah, that's a very large task.
That's why we went for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about 2013 to plan to desk audit. Based on desk audit, they're going to pay increase and so on, so they're going to do that. So because of citywide is a large job, that's why Councilor Michael Yoon patient wait till 5 years. So about time to do it, right?
It's a lot. I see y'all just struggling. Y'all don't want to say y'all going to do this.
Don't do it then. I can rebel. Don't do it. Like another 28 years. Hold on. That's all. What's the big
5
deal?
years we'll get it for you. But I think, Mark's strategy with a salary compensation schedule is step one into making sure that the people that are in the jobs are properly compensated. Those people we bring in are brought in at the right levels. I think that's, that is, that and redoing the ranges for civil service positions. I think, that's the first step will accomplish a lot of what you're trying to accomplish.
I know that a lot of my appreciation is above your paycheck, right?
I know that.
Not at all. He's a very bright young man.
No, he's right. He's brought that department up. I give him credit.
Well, 100%.
He has brought that department up.
If I had a vote, I'd vote yes right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
DPW, I don't know.
We have Director Shea. Director Shea has several items.
No.
You have to have a legal reason not to.
Right, we're not pulling that. Well, maybe somebody dropped the ball.
We got 10H and what are the other? He has 10Z5. All right.
Is a resolution authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding cost reimbursement agreement between the City of Jersey City and the Federal Bureau of Investigation Newark Field Office pursuant to NJSA 4811:5 for the City of Jersey City to act as a participating agency in the Federal Bureau of Investigation Newark Field Officer Cyber Task Force.
Okay.
That was a mouthful.
C5 is routine in
did a
nature.
terrific job.
We regularly loan out officers to various federal agencies. Director could speak to it.
The only reason we're asking here, he'll be going to work with the FBI. We already have 2 agreements with the FBI, one for our people to work with them on a violent crimes task force, and then, of course, the large one is for them to work on the joint terrorism task force. This is just a different task force with them. It's the cyber task force. Our detective is they actually asked us for this detective. He's a pretty nationally respected cyber person. I can't even understand Chris Baker. He's in our major case squad right now. He will still be available for anything we need him to do. This is more about getting him clearances and access to their equipment and their programs so he can do even more for us and participate with them. His responsibilities will run the gamut from financial crime to violent crime to terrorism responsibilities in this cyber world. So it's a win-win for the city. The FBI will pick up all the costs of his vehicles, overtime, et cetera, et cetera. They'll reimburse us for all that. He's still available to us for anything we need to do, and to the Secret Service. He does a lot of work with them. And in return, again, they paid for all his clearances so he can work on the more sensitive stuff.
Any questions on 10Z5? No. Okay, 10Z7.
10Z7 is a resolution authorizing the renewal of a shared service agreement pursuant to the Ununiformed Shared Services Consolidation Act, NJSA 48:65-1, exec for the City of Jersey City to provide off-duty police services to the Jersey City Housing Authority.
Yeah, this one, events obviously may be catching up with this one. The Jersey City Housing Authority has that separate agreement with us, other than separate from everybody else who hires off-duty police officers, because years ago they made the deal with them to make sure they have police officers who've worked in the developments, understand the developments, know the people who live there, et cetera. So we've allowed them to vet who comes and works with them. I don't have to tell you, the entire off-duty program is under multiple investigations and reviews. But we can't continue even until we come to a continuation of until we come to a denouement of those investigations. We need your permission to even continue day to day in the Housing Authority.
How many police officers they request? You know, because I go down there, I don't hardly see them. I just don't.
I know that's the problem. Like the housing, I
don't see.
They don't want. It's completely different because it's kind of. We only have two separate ones. There's one for everybody, and then the Board of Education is allowed their own. And for the same reason, they want to pick officers who are good with the youth, with the youth, et cetera. And housing's allowed their own for the same. They want to pick officers that have a demonstrated experience working in those developments and with the residents of those developments. There's 12 to 15. They work at the times that they need them. So like more work in the summer than the winter. Like right now, you won't see anybody, in there. More work in the summer, more work when there's parties, when there's picnics scheduled, when residents have events. Again, the entire off-duty program is a mess, has been since I first bought it to have people here 4.5 years ago. Events have proven many of us prescient and will be addressed in the very near future, but just day to day to continue with the officers in housing, we just need this one passed.
This is also a lower hourly rate than the normal off-duty. That's why, another reason why it comes to the council to authorize the lower rate.
My understanding is this is a contract for a year.
It
shouldn't our, renewal of it be significantly of a shorter time frame, given the problems that we've seen?
I mean, it's a year because it's always been a year, so we just boilerplated, boilerplated a renewal. Of course, they understand, I speak to housing all the time, they understand that if the program ends or if the program is significantly altered for any reason, then they will participate and cooperate with whatever we need.
Off-duty police officers mostly in the summer, right?
Yeah.
So why can't we just make a contract for a certain
This is
amount?
just the way there's, like they might need them now. Let's say there's a picnic or something scheduled by your events.
And it's cold,
They tend to call, I gotta be honest.
It seemed like you're frustrated with this.
Yeah. For 4.5 years.
Yeah.
I will be very happy when we have to pay for this instead of having an off-duty thing paying for it. I mean, that's where we're going. The bottom line is they're still going to need the services. They're still going to expect the police services. We are probably going to just, like the parades, which we fixed, we are probably going to end up just picking it up as part of our municipal services like everything else. I fully expect this contract to go away within the next year.
Set pool of money is $280,000 for the entire year, so they'll call the police department and schedule according to that. So it might be lower right now in the winter, higher in the summer.
I mean, the next one we talk about, we're going to see the problems with doing it piece by piece, comes up. So everybody prefers to authorize the money and then draw down from it, and if there's some left over at the end, they can just return it to their general fund, which is kind of what they're, what they're doing here. We're just giving them permission to spend this much on off-duty at a lower rate than all of our other off-duty because they and the Board of Education have those special deals. But again, I foresee this probably ending and us having to provide these police services out of Hyde, I'll be honest.
I don't see why you're stating here that this is terminable on 90 days notice, 90 days written notice, something like that. You want to add that?
Yeah, I mean, we can add that.
To council.
If you're comfortable with that, that's okay.
Well, it's subject to negotiation, but you can make it 30 days notice, 60 days, 90, whatever is reasonable. Yeah, so why not do that?
Be responsible for terminating it.
Either, you can make it either party or only the city. If you want to make it only the city,
Completely new to this, but I mean, I would feel more
The
comfortable
city.
with the council retaining more control over
Over
this.
the
So, an oversight, given the newspaper articles I read about this program. So, I mean, can you renew it for a month, for 3
Typically-
months, as opposed to?
oh, I see what you mean, to just
Right.
have it a month to month.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you hate to do that without talking to the housing authority, only because I don't know what their security issues are, and you know,
What
you.
information can they provide us about the number of officers who have been in this program, how much has been paid out, what type of oversight they're doing?
should be able to do
Because all
that.
that's information that I feel
I
like
know,
I would need
I know.
before to feel comfortable on voting for this.
Big axe.
Listen, I mean, the other option we can do, if people are, as the councilman says, if people are uncomfortable, we can kill it right now, and we'll have to start providing it just out of high, which,
We don't want to kill it right now, because if they need employee, I mean, if they need police
no, we'd have to
officers.
provide them.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
just like
Okay,
anyone
I
else
don't
who lives
want
in
them
Jersey
not
City.
to.
If they need police officers, we would have to provide them. This is just an opportunity for them to defray the cost of them by hiring the off-duty ones instead of us providing them out of our general, out of our general services. But I mean, if there's too much concern about it, we can just.
Well, the police department has to send an invoice to them, so PD should be able to provide how many officers were hired in 2017 for the council.
Can you provide that to the billing invoices that went to the Housing Authority? Yep.
So do you want to do this like,
Look into this a little further, sit down with certain people of knowledge to talk it out. I think it has to be looked into further, this whole situation with the housing authority then.
Has to be looked into further in light of what?
Program is a good program. Chief. The way it's going. I'll speak to you separately on it.
Off topic, I just wanted to ask you, what's happening with the precinct that was supposed to be built in Dales Avenue?
We're still working on, but the building, we're fighting with them often, not fighting.
We're
Cooperating in
going
a
through-
different,
okay.
cooperating in a different way. Like the building, as you know, you and I could probably have built the building already.
Right, I mean, since-
But when we have to do it, ADA, when you try to change anything now, you bring in all the laws that you were grandfathered in beforehand. So Bob can speak more to the fact that the costs
This
just
is
keep
not gonna
warding
be
up.
like West, it's not gonna be like the West Precinct, is it?
Huh?
That was a nightmare, the West Precinct.
This would be a nightmare to retrofit that building for our needs, based on the costs that are involved. We'll probably come back and recommend, if we can find a different site, build an actual building there.
And I'm still on the other side of that, so this is still, Councilwoman, it is still a very open thing, because I'm still on the other side that we can probably do something effective there without it being maybe everything everybody wants, but it could be what we want, what we want and get our presence there. So, but there's arguments on both sides, and we're still hammering that out. And of course, there's legalities on every side.
Did we allot a finance for this?
No, there's no funding available currently set aside. We actually reappropriated some funding to another purpose. We would have to refund it.
But it was allotted, but then it got.
Yeah, it was, and we changed it, we did a reappropriation ordinance.
Just coming back to 10Z7, so what does the council want to do with this resolution? Move it forward, put some stipulations on, renewals of every
I mean,
90
you could
days,
make
60
it a
days?
90-day contract that has to be renewed 90 days from now, rather than a one-year contract. I don't know.
I'm not comfortable discussing. They've always been a year. I don't know if housing would have a problem with that, with their funding streams. Can they do it 90 days? Do they have to commit? I don't know. It's just a question I'm being, never brought up before, so I don't want to say I know when I don't. That's. We could do 90. I don't know if they can.
Maybe we could just call the housing authority tomorrow, so do it 90 days, but subject to agreement by the housing authority.
So if we do 90
Try that?
days and then housing says no, what do we do? We're just gonna keep
They
this?
said subject to, you need to vote this up or down. You do a year or no?
I like that proposal. See what the housing authority says, if they're willing to do 90 days. I mean, I can personally say I would not feel comfortable voting for a year-long extension of a contract that seems to have some significant problems with it, so.
I agree with 90 days, subject to 90 days. We'll see. And when we have come up with a beautiful new program that can provide service
then we go based on new programs,
Keep in mind, when it's calls to service, we call active guys to respond instead of the officers that are already assigned there. So there'll be an increase in cost to our city budget.
I mean, there's a risk here. Listen, I don't want to spend too much time on this thing, obviously. But there is a risk here. They're providing $280,000 worth of police services to themselves through this off-duty program. If we say we want to go 90 days and they say, you know what, let's just kill it, we will still have to provide those police services to them. And we would have to pay. Of course. They're residents just like any other resident of the city.
All right, then go 1 year.
Okay. Councilman Solomon.
I've said what I said.
All right, 10Z10.
10Z10 is a resolution authorizing the payment of a claim submitted by Tomahawk Defense, LLC, for providing an incident response exercise to the Department of Public Safety Police.
This is the final payment on last year's active shooter drills. Everybody knows we use this one company. They provide our 4 drills a year and 2 two-week training periods for our emergency service and our fire department. Been a big success so far. We've got the Jersey City Medical Center and the EMS does it with us. The fire department does it with us. We have done all of our major educational facilities, St. Peter, Jersey City University, several of our partners, and a lot of our government buildings. Problem with it is a mess getting it together, which is why this has come in late, because there's just too many actors. There's too many people, so we need to find when St. Peter's is available, like for instance. We need to find when we're available, when this company is available, when our federal partners are available. And we end up grabbing a date, and then it's too late to effectively put in the payments and stuff like that. So we're always running around after the fact behind the 8 ball doing it. So Tawana Moody has come up with a new plan to do, our fiscal officer to do this year, where we will put a year, which some of you have been asking us to do anyway for the last couple of years, put a whole year's training together, fund it out at the beginning of the year, approve it once. Now it's approved legally ahead of time, no problems. And then if any money is left over at the end of the year, because for whatever reason we cancel a drill or a training, return that money, to the general fund. This money, by the way, does not come out of Jersey City. Everybody knows this is from the federal forfeiture funds. They have to separately approve it and approve the training that we give to our officers or any equipment that comes out of it. So it's got double approvals on the thing. All we're asking you for is permission to do it. This will be the last time you see an individual one. From now on, it will be 1 year at a time, scheduled in advance with who's involved, where the training is going to be. And then again, if it gets canceled for some reason, which it does, because of lack of availability at the college or whatever, we just will return that money to the general fund.
Questions? So Tomahawk Defense LLC is the only one company to do this?
That's the only company we do. Oh, no, there's other companies that do it. This is the one we do it with because, well, yes, we've been using them for several years, and so far we don't have a problem with them. We're very happy. Now, there's several companies that do this. One of them we've rejected because they're only military. There's no policing in their experience stream. This one is a blend of very experienced military and very experienced police. They come in and they do 2 things for us. They train our emergency service unit 2 weeks at a time for the 2 two-week periods, including all of our new people. For any of the new members, our emergency service unit is our response unit for any our main response unit for any active shooters, terrorists, etc. So we have started this year we're going to upgrade the training again. All our new members go over and do the entire 8-month course at the New York City's emergency service training. All active members do 2 two-week courses a year, which they're capable of being failed. For lack of a better word, they can fail and have to leave the unit. And we are going to increase the training and add a monthly component at the beginning of every month for the entire unit. The 2 reasons for this: 1, we asked them to do a very dangerous job, so it's only fair that we give them the tools to do it. 2, for liability purposes, we need to be able to prove that we're doing this when, God forbid, something goes wrong and we have to justify what we did. So since we've started this training regimen, we have been through several lawsuits that we have thankfully won and not had to pay out any money because in one case a jury and another case a judge agreed that our training regimens were rigorous and covered every eventuality, and we couldn't be held responsible for any sometimes bad things happen, but it wasn't because we didn't do our job. So the point of using the same company all the time and not going out to new companies is they all do it different. So once we've taught our people what to do, we want to stay with that one measure. Everybody's trained the same way. Before we did this, if you remember, we had a big problem on several jobs because we used to send people to different training schools and they got trained in different methods. And then they came together and each of them did the same thing a different way. It was, quite frankly, stupid and unconscionable. It was like having ballerinas who each didn't know the dance getting on a stage together without doing. So now we insist that everybody is trained. We've increased it to our fire people, are now being trained in the medical part. A lot of our cops are being trained in the medical part in the response. We're getting better at this every year, and I think it's one of our, it's an effective use of that federal money. That's a.
For the hearing impaired or deaf? I'm just curious.
Since you asked us that the last time, and we've incorporated we incorporated into the last training at your request the people, differently abled people, and people suffering from autism. Right. Potentially, we did that at the last college thing. We learned quite a few gaps. Quite a few gaps we had in our training that we had to address. The key for them is, remember, we give them our requirements, but they never tell us what they're going to do at any given drill. So our police officers have no idea. So the next one may include that, or it may not. Then they may jump to another one. They do it based on, they sit with us ahead of time. We base it on actual events happening around the country and your request, and what requests we make from here specifically. But they did do it one time. I'm not sure if we did the last time. I think that immediately after you asked, they incorporated it into the next one. Yeah, they did with the, yeah. Okay, next. Fire, I have a couple fire.
10Z13 and 10Z14.
10Z13 is a resolution authorizing the award of a contract to A&K Equipment Company for the purchase and installation of a truck flatbed for the Department of Public Safety Division of Fire.
Yeah, that's pretty standard. We're going to be converting, we have the funds in the operating account. It's about $18,648. We're going to be converting a truck that we already have in the fleet to a flatbed so we can bring equipment to incidents when we need them at various incidents. It's just a need we're going to be filling. We've got the truck available. We've got the money to do the conversion. We're going to go ahead and do it.
10Z14.
10Z14 is a resolution authorizing the award of a contract to AAA Emergency Supply for the purchase and delivery of blowhard fans for the Department of Public Safety Division of Fire funded. That's what's in the resolution. That's the name. Fiscal year 17 Urban Area Security Initiative Grant.
Yeah, so this is coming out. I'd like to thank Greg Kears. Everybody understands the Urban Area Security Initiative combines the whole area. The federal government provides a grant through the state of New Jersey to our area to use for emergency things. One of the needs or gaps that they identified was the increased high-rises being built downtown and some of our fire capability to respond to those. And one of the ones that was identified based, I believe, on the fire that happened in London that everybody saw was the ability to vent that smoke out of there more quickly so that firefighters can operate in that environment safer. So that's what the purchase of these vans are for. They would be used, everyone just saw the fire in New York City at the top of the Trump Tower. They're used, those buildings are pretty good on fireproofing, but smoke gets everywhere anyway. So what these fans do is vent them out faster so that we can get the firefighters in faster.
They purchased 4 pieces, right?
Yeah, 4. Total $20,790, and that's all coming out of the UASI grants, cost Jersey City nothing.
6 pieces. Oh, 6 pieces, right? 6 pieces, right? Okay.
6.
Okay. Is there Z15 too?
Is that?
That's Kears, right?
Kears. Sorry. No, Greg is going to.
Okay.
15 to 16.
So 10H, resolution approving the reappointment of James Shea as Director of the Department of Public Safety.
Feel free to vote against that.
It's very impressed also, not only myself, probably most of the city council. You actually completely understand your own job, your department.
Pardon me, sir?
You understand your job.
Yeah, it's a very good. And you control that, both department, police and the fire department. Very impressed, actually.
Well, thank you. We have, just real quick, I made a joke, feel for, but really, we have some goals for the upcoming year. Fire's doing an incredible job. We're very comfortable with the new chief, that was just selected. However, one of the things we asked him is to provide us with a great, like, kind of a leap forward. And he has a great idea for personal inspection programs, which, as some of you know, we have not been happy about in the past because we don't want to expose our residents to fines and stuff like that, you know, in their personal homes. This one's going to be a voluntary one with no negative possible repercussions. And we'd like to tie it into some of the funds we have and go into people's homes and help them fireproof their home, as opposed to just telling them, hey, you have to do this or else you'll get a fine, you have to do this. So one of the big things, what we want to do is look back on what's causing our fires. For instance, those cheap computer strips that they sell, that's the cause of a disproportionate amount of fires. So we'd like to purchase the right ones, go in, find the bad ones, and actually replace them on a voluntary basis with our homeowners. So the new chief has a very exciting program, in my opinion, to do that, which I think is going to, oh, you've probably all seen. We've got runs up, but fires, we're down to about 100. So we're starting to, and the lower we get, the harder it's going to be to knock it down, you know, to knock it down further. So this is one of the places where we see a possibility. Everybody knows we're increasing our EMS capacity to help EMS, not to take it over, but to help EMS and get people to our citizens faster, utilizing the fire department. And then down the road, more of a 4-year plan than a 1-year, we still have a lot of things we have to look at. We have to look... No, the fine thing we have to look at is the face of the city is changing. Our fires are still in the same places, so our where we are now is good. But looking forward, the population in downtown is exploding. The type of buildings are different. For a 4-year plan, we may be looking at trying to move some companies around or increase the size as if the population continues as we expect it to in certain places. Big help. I'd like to thank the Patty here, somebody's helping us get our firehouses rehabbed. Everybody remembers 4 years ago we had a bit of a mess. We were down trucks, they were broken down, we had to shut companies down because there were no trucks. We've got the equipment problem solved, we have the personnel problem solved. I now believe we have our leadership in place for the next few years moving forward, and thanking Department of Public Works. We have work going on those firehouses to keep them functional and open so we're not staged on corners waiting to respond. So fire we're comfortable with. I heard that the rumors. I hate that word.
Fire department give away carbon monoxide or detector, anything like that?
What's that?
Carbon monoxide.
That's one of the things we want to do with these inspections. Like, there's three things we want to accomplish with these inspections: smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, and then fire hazards that we can help. We can't help with everything. If you're going to light candles and play with matches at a certain point, we just have to be ready to come. But there's things we can see and say that's dangerous. We can help you there. For $8, we can replace that with the one that's better. That's where we want to. Where we're trying to make an impact, using the local companies, the local fire companies, going out and meeting the people in their communities, helping them inspect their homes, helping them fireproof their homes. And again, the long-term project, it is what it is. I'll let Greg Keir speak for himself on Homeland Security. He has great 4-8-year plans moving forward. Sorry, Greg, I just set you up. Parking, our big goal for the year is to do what we've wanted to do for 4 years, is expand our parking enforcement to 24 hours and make it more citizen responsive by using technology and apps so that people can get directly. Now, we've tested it with that new app and it worked very well. So we are going to expand that, where we put parking people out whose only job was to respond to citizen complaints. All the citizens who tested it for us were happy. We found a few bugs. For instance, the app gave it to you in the order it came in, and sometimes that was inefficient because you might get a closer one that you could have knocked out on the way. That's all stuff we have to work, that's all stuff we have to work out. But our goal there is to get more enforcement 24/7 and make it more citizen responsive. And in addition, that takes all of those jobs off the police queue, which helps us get the police to real police jobs faster because they're not getting those jobs. We get way too many complaints from people for council that they call the police don't respond for a parking job. But the police are responding to more serious, not more important, because whatever your problem is at the time is important, but more serious jobs that they have to respond to ahead of a minor job. But that doesn't help you if you're sitting waiting for an hour for somebody to come and unblock your driveway. So if we can move those jobs to parking where they belong and get the response out of parking, which was also more efficient as far as expense, everything else, then we can free up the cops to do the actual police work.
What's in the plan to update those meters? in
To
parking.
what, charge more?
Update meters,
Parking
no,
meters?
because some of the meters are really outdated in certain
Yeah,
streets.
you know what?
And
We're
to
actually working on
increase.
something with engineering.
Yeah.
About upgrading technology, there'll probably be funding put into the capital bond ordinance about, maybe start with a pilot program.
I
and
can't
then
wait
go
till
from
when,
there.
I can't wait till I'm not, I can't wait till I don't have anybody collecting quarters anymore. In today's day and age, you know, that's,
There are other issues that, as you just mentioned that parking is the number one issue in Jersey City, you know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when I see that parking, division of the parking, they have no parking expert to, you know, in the planners, anything like that. So I think about time to this side of the city, we should be hire parking experts in parking division instead to come up plans based on community leaders, because it's like a balloon. We try to limit the problem this area, the problem move to next blocks. You know,
We're going to have an RFP going out soon with planning for a parking study citywide. Barca from Inicia's office is going to be headlining that for us.
We need some experts, so when the community have a meeting, we got to discuss the parking, somebody at least expert to show up, to come out. Parking is not issue, just a local issue, local areas, citywide issue, you know. So we have some master plans, the citywide parking plans we require, number one. Number two, as off-duty job, that's actually, you know, it's actually last week is probably one of the saddest years in your department, the lost officer and the former police chief get indicted, you know what I'm saying. I said, lost officer, we cannot stop the things happen, but something we can control the off-duty job. I like to see from your side, with your leadership, you know, come up some plan to limit those kind of off-duty job problem, you know.
Well, we've been discussing the off-duty job since 4.5 years ago. It was one of the first things I brought to the council when I came here 4.5 years ago. And there was a lot of opposition to what myself and some of the council members wanted to do to rein this in. Exactly what we kind of predicted has happened has happened. So now we are going to be forced to rein it in. We're in discussions. The mayor and I have been clear throughout the last couple of years. If anyone in the Jersey City Police Department is engaged in corruption or misconduct, they will be held accountable, and we will work with the local prosecutors or the federal prosecutors to do so. If that's a morale problem for someone, they need to find another job. Now, so we are going to fix it, and we are now in discussions with those agencies who have helped us investigate it, and we now know the scope. I can now prove the scope of the problem, whereas before I had people denying that the problem existed, even though myself and several people sitting at this table said it must be happening. So now we can prove it. So now I think any objections to our proposed solutions are not going to hold water anymore. I would expect very quickly, within a month or two, being back here and giving you my plan for how we're going to move forward on this.
How's the cameras coming?
Cameras, very good. We will be giving you, I believe it's next month, we'll be giving you the next phase.
Okay.
We're up to, so what have I spent so far? I'm trying to think, how much have you spent, Greg?
360.
Another 360,000 is coming to Greg right now for the next phase, which is running more fiber optics and filling in some of the gaps. Okay, we now are, so we're on our secondary. If you think of that first phase as the most solution-resistant places, they're there. Now we're on the secondary ones, and we've extended it also to where the community has asked for cameras that was not included in the first set. So like Monticello Avenue came in. Yep, we just approved the next set of spots. That's phase 2. We have another 500,000 coming out of phase 3. That's coming from our forfeiture funds. Again, we're going to use that on cameras. Now, what we have to do now, though, is, and this will be the next piece that comes to you, we've already approved the cameras and the fiber optics. That's easy. We are now at the point where we have to start spending at least a little money on our back office stuff. The stuff we asked Bob Baker to cover, because cameras and technology in general, as they get better, more people use them. It's a classic problem of technology. So like as our cops realize how good the cameras are, more of them want to use them, more detectives. That's starting to overload our servers. So we're starting to see it slow down and see other problems. So the next set of money, we're going to probably have to take 100,000 of it and use it on the back office support stuff and make sure that the servers can support. And then we'll add the next run of cameras, which should extend us into the, we've been concentrating on the south and west, as everybody knows. The next run of cameras should continue west and run us into the north. Okay? The reason we're waiting for the east for last, everybody knows the east has the highest percentage and the highest amount of privately owned cameras that we can access and that can give us what we want. So there's less need here. A lot of the companies down here have them, and we can access them. Where we need them is originally the south and west, and now we're hoping to extend all the way into the north. So that's just phase, that's that kid in my office, Chris Kearns, that we hired, turned out to be a genius at this. My goal this year is to get all this done and then completely unhook us from those old flawed systems so they're completely replaced, so that we're not even spending any money trying to maintain them or trying to get them. They're obsolete. We just take them down off the grid. And then we continue to hook them up. All the cameras are hooked up to the 911 system. 911 operators can look right on the camera if they get a job at. Our police officers can look right on the cameras if they get a job at that location. And then Director Kearse has the entire city for emergencies, snowstorms. He has access to everything. So the camera system, after much prodding, I think we're pleased right now with where it's going, and by keeping one person in charge of it, he's going, and we've run into the usual, I don't want to make it seem too, we settled on one company, we stuck with them, just like anybody else. We've had to every now and then threaten to pull, threaten them. They're good, but every now and then we have to stay on top of them and make sure that they're sticking to our schedule, not theirs. PSE&G can be a problem sometimes because as we move to different locations, we're finding I've held this privately with some of you, locations where there's supposedly been a camera for 6 years, there's no power. There's no power, so we have to run the power to it. But they're helping us. We'll stay on top of it. I'll let you know if there's a problem, but I really don't see one. That's going to be one of our successes, I think, this year, is moving that camera system on. And finally, the last thing I'll tell everybody, I'm going to be spending a lot of my own time this year on, finally, the 911 system. Everybody, the 911 system. Everybody remembers 4 years ago we had a catastrophic shutdown. We had to do a lot of work. I want to thank the business administrator again, because that was a night we had to do a lot of work in an emergency with no time, to fix it. Since then, we haven't had a problem, mostly thanks to Director Baker, who we put out there and who is doing it. But we put a lot on his shoulders, and it's still one of our weaknesses. That doesn't mean it's as bad as it was. It just means it's not where I'm comfortable reporting to you it should be. We plan on spending a lot of time looking what we have to do out there. And nothing is off the table. We're actually going to be hiring a company to come in. We've been having trouble get bids. We're hiring a company to come in and look at it from bottom to top on how we stand compared to other cities, how we stand compared to state-of-the-art technology. Are we industry standards on everything? And they're going to give us an unbiased report. It is not a company. I think they have no interest in the business afterwards. So it's just, this is where this is where you stand. And then we'll see where we go from there. But it's something that I think for the citizens of Jersey City, we've been lagging, and we have to bring it up to speed. So that's our final, that's our 1 year goals. And police department, I want to thank everybody for your, I've gotten everybody's things. Chris was a great guy. Thank you. Nothing makes it right. There's nothing we can do. Yeah, we lost it. He was one of the next generation of officers that, I got a lot of bad things in this job. One of the good things is watching those next ones come up that are going to be good and saying, wow, in a couple years they'll be in charge of the department. It'll be in good hands. You all know them, the Mark Millers, the Nikki Scarbos, the Trish Cassidys, the Ben Daly's. We see them coming, and Chris was one of them. And it's a loss for everybody in Jersey City. And people who don't know him lost something, when they lost him. But we'll get there. The other stuff, with the corruption stuff, we'll fix. It's been a hard job. We've been fixing it, and everybody knows. I can say it now. The investigation's out there. Our internal affairs has been working for 2 years with the FBI and everybody on this. So it took a long time, but now it's out there. We can prove the scope of the problem, and we can fix it.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you, Director Shea.
Keep it brief.
Over here,
I asked him to vote against me at the beginning.
I mean, appointment for all the director is there, but why is the BA name is not here, and the other people is not named here? You're going to come out next week? How they work?
I don't know what
I thought it's coming all together.
The mayor's discretion.
The mayor's job? Oh, I thought it was my job. I'm just kidding.
So we'll divert from the agenda. We have the MUA here. I believe they came here at your request, Councilman Young.
Oh, yeah, JCMUA, yes.
Elmer?
Yeah, thank you, really.
I also have Drexel Butler.
Come on up.
Yes, because this is actually one of the serious issue we have. As you know that, Bob Kay, like a month and a half ago, this city council gave the allowance that the JCMU issued the $468 million bond. The $468 million bond, right? Correct? I think that kind of bond.
That's not necessarily his purview.
Oh, this one. Okay, good.
I think he was here more for the billing issue that the meters you asked about.
Yeah.
$20 million I think it was spent out of $460 million bond to change a meter in Jersey City to internet, the Wi-Fi internet meters.
Correct.
So now that I understand, so in the future, JCM, you're going to change all the water meter in Jersey City to internet, so there's no more reading by hand. But now, meantime, JCM sent a letter to a lot of people to ask them to change the meters. So what it is, so because they change the meter almost as listen to the same like my district area, almost everybody, you know what I'm saying. And the meter is nothing wrong. Your inspector come up check the meter is nothing wrong, but they ask to change the meter. So now what happened? So that change the meters cost for them, and the other hand, we're going to spend the $20 million change the meters again by JCMUA. So you can hold it that change the meters in citywide till they put in the new meters. Why they have to be change the meter twice?
I'll start with the last one first. Changing the meters will actually help us get to where we're going to go live online with the meters. What that means is that once these new meters are changed in, all we have to do, and Drexel, my meter shop manager, will make any corrections, all we have to do is put a cap on there and it's live on the internet. So the meters we're investing on, all it will need is an adapter. So we're killing two birds with one stone.
See again, when you guys send a letter to the homeowners, you got to clear say that in order to put your updated meters by internet meters or whatever you call, in order to do that, you have to change the meters, upgrade the meters. That is more better explained to the homeowners other than just your meter has something you have to change.
This doesn't cost the homeowner anything.
So no.
So the letter is not the resident is confused by the letter, is that?
Yes, it's like
okay.
See, the most of the homeowners receive the letter, they call that your meter is something wrong.
Yes.
So you have to change it. So it's actually meter is nothing wrong, but you guys recommend to change the meters because if you put your new meters in the future when you choose internet meters, much easier to operate your side. But homeowner-wise, this is the problem because a lot of homeowners that have meters, they have a shuttle valve on the street. So in order to change the meters, they're going to spend $4,000 or $5,000 putting the shuttle valve in the street. See, those kind of things cause a problem because a lot of homeowners don't expect expense in their side.
Well, what I always tell our customers in Jersey City is that when you become a... I'm from the JCMUA. When as a homeowner, you should be responsible for replacement and repairs of these meters, and you don't wait until it blows up. So a lot of homeowners fail to understand this, that that equipment in the sidewalk, the valves in your basement, they should always be maintained and repaired.
So we understand before meters, the repair belong to JCMUA, no?
No, the JCMUA only owns the meter. All other parts, with the exception of the main in the street, is owned by the city of Jersey City. We just operate the water system, which, as you know, we've contracted it to Suez, the professional water.
Okay, so all of the upgrade the meters. What is it? Oh, no, not JCM, the Suez sent a letter.
Yes.
More likely, you have to change the meter because your meter is not read correct.
No. The state applauds us for doing this. They actually like what Jersey City is doing. We're proactively concerned about meter. One thing is the state is very concerned about water loss and revenue. And they like that we have a meter change program. It benefits the customer. It benefits the city. We're being able to tap into lost water, which is lost revenue.
So we gotta explain.
Meters cost the homeowners nothing.
Okay, so now the next one, I forgot to tell. If we not change the meters, they charge the homeowners like $200, and they charge a penalty and interest and so on and so.
We'll remove it.
You're gonna remove,
We just
right?
need them to comply. They're just told by our rules and regulations to comply, and we have, via the City of Jersey City's ordinance, we're allowed to charge a non-compliance fee. And we don't go over $12.50, which is the city's ordinance.
Via what?
Yeah.
Council, via what did you charge them? Via our codes?
There's a plumbing ordinance.
The city of Jersey City.
So now,
We should look at that.
a lot of senior homeowners, they really get nervous. Can we do like a grace period after send the letters? You must have to change, well, you give to 90 days grace period, please change the meter in 90 days. Sounds like they to have to right away, other than that, 200 as a penalty, interest and so and so. Can you send the different letters now on? That's number one. And the sewage said.
If you have a letter, you would recommend, the MUA will read it, we'll share it with Suez. Suez's attorneys will review it,
Okay.
and then we'll send it out.
So can I have a business card? Okay. And another one, the change of meters in the grounding, the meters and so and so. You know what happened? They sent a letter, it's a very, very fine point of letter, cannot even read it without magnifying glass. So I told the gentleman Farwell, who is a part-time director of the JCMUA, change the letter, and still done not change the letter yet. Size of the letters are a little bigger, so everybody can read it without magnifying glass.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying, right? Can you do the two things? I'm not as cool out.
No.
All right, good.
Whatever, these are our customers.
We don't want to hit them over the head more than we want to. So if there's a fine, we'll remove it. If they're asked for grace period, we'll do it.
Yes,
They just need to ask.
Yes. Stress the homeowners, especially seniors, okay?
Yes.
Right, like a 90 days, all right? Okay.
You're with the city or Suez?
I'm with the JCMUA.
JCMUA.
Yeah.
You should throw
He's
Suez.
Suez.
Suez is right here, Councilman.
And you know what, do me a favor, when they pick up the phone in the Jersey consumer call that yesterday, be a little more friendly and nice.
Sure, customer service.
Thank you very much. Sometimes it's very nasty and mean,
Customer service is nasty.
you know, really.
Council Bojana, you have
No, you don't want to hear my opinion about Suez and the rest of it.
Okay.
So when is the next contract is a Suez? Renew contract?
I think,
There was just a public hearing, January 4th.
Renew the contract, right?
Yes.
2018.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. All right, going back to our regular agenda, thank you. Brian Weller, from Director of Architecture. Brian has 10Z9.
Yes, 10Z9.
So, 10Z9 is a resolution rejecting all bids received by the City of Jersey City on November 2nd, 2017 for a contract known as Firehouse Number 10 Floor Slab Replacement and Masonry Restoration, Project Number 2017-11.
That is all correct. We originally started this project because the equipment was pending falling through the floor due to deterioration of the existing slab. So about a year ago, I think, we vacated the entire building because it was unsafe. Since then, we tried to come up with a plan that would stabilize the dilapidated building and restoration of the exterior masonry, because we were afraid that doing the work that needed to be done inside was going to affect the outside. And it kind of has snowballed out from there. We did get a plan together, put it out to public bid, and the 3 bids that we did get, we were a little disappointed about. They all greatly exceed our architects' and our consulting engineers' estimate. And Also during the review, we met with the fire department, and there's a few other issues regarding access from the house, to and from the house, and the fact that spending this kind of money on the house still doesn't really satisfy the needs of the fire department. There's complaints about the windows, on and on and on. And so at this point, we're looking at possibly being able to build a new one for a little bit more money than this that would satisfy the needs. And so I'm working with a redevelopment agency trying to find property in this general area because the fire department needs to be able to respond in a timely manner from this location.
So we don't think it's prudent to spend this kind of money just to rehab an older building that has a lot more problems. If we spend a little bit more, we can get a brand new facility within the same neighborhood. That's the thinking here.
More than 1.1 or 1.8?
A little bit more than 1.8. You're probably looking between 3.5 to build an old new building.
What year was it?
That's more than a little bit more.
Well,
But this house, we spent like $300,000, 2014, no? No. Never we spend any money?
No, not on this house.
Not this house. The other house, was it? We spent
we
some.
hired the engineer to do the study, but not to do the actual work.
Oh, that was 2014 or
Maybe.
13. 14 was right? No, 13. And then now we.
Well, I mean, originally I was going to try to value engineer it and come back down, but the fire department went through a list of other items and the discrepancies with the firehouse, all the way down to the fact that if a few cars are illegally parked on that narrow street of Halliday, they could render that firehouse useless if they can't get the trucks out in an emergency. So there's a lot of issues tied to this.
What's the timeline on this, Brian? I mean, to either fix this or decide that we're gonna actually go ahead and buy a new space and build, because the residents call me every single day in reference to, not having protection. And I know over the summertime, we had the fire trucks that were stationed there, and they would actually sit in the kitchen, and the fire truck, they would just keep it parked outside.
Correct.
But I haven't seen it, or the neighbors haven't seen it in months.
Is this ladder 12?
Holiday.
Ladder 12?
Yeah.
What year was the building built?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it is considered historic, and that's why we're trying to stabilize the exterior brick before any of the internal work stabilizing that slab was going to happen.
So this is the resolution to reject the bid, right?
Reject the bid.
Yes.
Because it exceeded the budget
Yeah.
for the project.
We don't have the money for it right now anyway.
Just to your point, it sounds like they're moving towards what you do fire.
Yes, we're working with redevelopment to see what the city's best options are available. And then
a resolution for that for Councilman.
I don't have total control of that. We have to find property, and we're
Fund projects,
yeah.
which would be in the next capital ordinance that you'll be getting in the next couple of months.
Is that on top of, like, the rescue, going to another place? Because then if that's it, then we would do rescue and then ladder 12, correct? Is that the order, or?
We're looking to fund both projects. We've asked the fire department to prioritize their needs, and that's 1 and 2 on their list.
So just to be clear, you're not saying that you can build a new firehouse for $800,000. You're saying since these bids came in so high, you might as well build a whole new
Right.
firehouse because you'd rather spend the 1.8 or let's say $2 million on building a whole new
Right, so the
facility.
budget was $1 million for the project, so it came in much higher than we budgeted. And if we're gonna spend 1.8, we'd rather spend $3 million on a brand-new facility than to rehab an older facility that truly doesn't meet the 21st century needs of a fire department.
And let me just say, to be clear, this $1,800,000 or so would only get the firemen back in. It doesn't provide a new facility with windows that don't leak and HVAC and bathrooms that are habitable, as well as the living quarters.
Yeah, right, the floors.
So we would,
Issues there. This was just addressing one of those issues.
the city would end up spending probably about $3 million to rehab this undersized house, which, by the way, that's another point I forgot. The fire department has a lot of trouble with the clearance of the trucks to get in and out of this door, and there's really nothing else we can do We were looking at lowering the floor inches, but even still, all of the new trucks are coming bigger and bigger all the time. So it just doesn't seem like it's in the city's best interest to spend $3 million on this house.
In the meantime, I'm sure this is not your issue. What does the residents do to, feel comfortable? Because, especially with the weather like it is outside today, that the respond time is.
I think the fire department would have to weigh in on that, but they're well aware of this situation.
I mean, Chief McGill feels that, there's proper coverage within that area. Yeah, I don't know if there's what's close at this point, but he has assured us that even with this closed, the response time to that neighborhood is still within more than acceptable means.
Like squad and rescues, right? 2 blocks away, so
Right,
that's the only reason why he
2
felt
blocks?
Yeah, it's right on Community Park Monticello. And we're talking about Holiday, so you get 4 blocks.
Say board at first.
Right, you down. Right.
Okay.
It's not first, second, third street, brother.
No other further questions? Moving on.
We had a meeting with about 40 seniors and up in Persian Field. In fact, Michael was there. The track. They don't want a hard surface, they want a soft surface, and they'd like to get the track done. I mean, we're going on 4 years now, and I know it's not you, but something has to be done.
Right. Thank you.
We'll discuss that with the powers that be.
What happened with the, it's in the Persian Field. These people are going to come out and start demonstrating because they're tired of it. A person hurt their foot in the track last week with one of the holes, a gentleman. He's lucky, the city's lucky he's not suing the city.
I'm not really happy with that track myself.
Oh, it has to be done. We got the money there. I mean, this idea that it's not a professional track, I told you, the Olympics trained there in 1948. So let's cut it out. Who's ever putting the pressure on in this administration? Let's get the track done.
So you're gonna find the money for you?
We got the money, Mike.
Joe Kuno's
The money's there, right?
We got the money.
The money's there.
Yes. So 2016, 15, City of Jersey issued $36 million. We allocate $800,000 a raised check for person.
Reallocate to the
Yes, it
park
was,
that
yeah.
needs to be done.
Yeah, but
I'll double check that for you.
yeah.
Let's start there. Let's see if the money is there, and then go from there. Yeah? Can you make a note of that? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Matt Ward, joined with the Director of Planning, Anicia Chiolone. Matt has 3A. Matt and Anicia?
I just wanted to say congratulations to everyone, and it's nice to see the returning council people and welcome the new council people. I just wanted to reiterate that city planning is here to, of course, listen to you and work with you on all of your needs, and we're open and we're here to work with you. We've been meeting with the new city council members to bring them up to speed so they're ready for anything that we'll put in front of you. I know that our meeting got canceled today, but we're meeting on Friday, and Ms. Ridley, we're setting ours up, and Councilman Solomon, we already had ours. So we'll prep them for what's coming and look forward to working with you all. We only have one item today, and it's an amendment to the land development ordinance. And I'm going to introduce Matt Ward, a senior planner with our office that you all will get used to working with, and the rest are very familiar with. And we look forward to working with you in 2018 and the next 4 years. Absolutely.
Any questions on 3A? I'm sorry. Yes, 3A.
Not, because I have to ask the director this one.
3A is a health thing.
When we do that, the change, amend the redeveloped plan, can't you provide to the city council members comparison chart, current and amend, like a density or height, so on, so like by itemize how they change, you know what I'm saying? Instead of give us a.
Inside that, say, for example, the fact sheet?
Yes, a fact sheet like that. So we understand if we current redevelopment plan AYZ, XYZ, then we know what is coming and how they're going to change. Item by, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, we can try to do a better job with the fact sheet at making it more clear. Sometimes if it's more complicated and there's multiple things changing, it can be a challenge, but if it's simple and it's one project or something, sure.
Our concern is the density, how many, and the heights and the price
So if it's a bonus package, how the bonus package change. The another items we like to know, what are they called? Parking. If we the amend height or density, then how the parking plans can come up, the plans, and also infrastructure, how the infrastructure will be improve the plans they have. So two items, all right, to have the parking improvement, how they're going to do, based on the change density in that area, and infrastructure, how they're going to do, okay?
We will call out whatever changes are in that plan. Sometimes it'll hit some of those things, sometimes it won't. All right, we'll do that on the next one. Let's test it out. Okay.
All right.
And I wanted to just bring up the one issue that came up earlier, which was to the parking study. This was in direct reaction to our conversation that came up at the budget hearing. I listened very carefully to what you said, Councilman Yoon. We went out and procured a grant for the city to do a citywide parking study, as the BA mentioned. And so without spending very much city funds, we have a small matching piece that you guys authorized, but really it's being paid for outside of the city. We're just waiting for full authorization from NJTPA, who's the person providing the grant, and we will do this citywide study. That's in direct reaction to your comment. And then from that study, if you still believe that we want to look to a more long-term policy person on staff, that could come out of the recommendations. But I think let's start with someone else's money and let's look at it citywide, and then we should go from there.
So I think that is probably one of the prize number one machine citywide.
Right, and that's why we're doing it. So let's go back to the agenda item. I'm going to turn it over to Matt.
Good evening. All right, so 3A, it's a change the LDO for the definitions in chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's really just looking at the health club definition. So we actually had some small business owners that were that are in the fitness world or similar worlds, such as yoga or karate or dance or something like that, that would meet the definition of health club. But really, it's not a term that we permit readily throughout the city, but we do. And most of those businesses fall under something we call retail service. So what we did was we just put in a qualifier into the health club definition that says all health clubs that are 4,000 square feet or less shall be permitted as retail services. And so that allows for a greater amount of small businesses to be permitted throughout the city that would otherwise fall into the health club definition.
What is it?
So the definition for a health club now is a meeting place for groups of people for the purpose of engaging in exercise and conditioning of the body for the benefit of physical fitness.
Is it a square foot number on it? Or
Nope.
That was part of the amendment just to add, okay.
See, you know what I'm saying? That's a comparison chart, so everybody needs to understand. Okay?
Absolutely.
Please.
All right.
The 4,000 number.
So I did some research into different franchises for kickboxing and karate and yoga, and a lot of them call out certain square footage that is necessary to open up a franchise. So that was what we used as our research to get the 4,000.
Okay. Do you have anything to do with the self-park robotic?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Golda, I understand you have a train to catch, yeah? Let's try to get the
I don't know what to
Golda
expect with the ice.
in and out here. It's
Thank you.
10Z3.
Hi, I'm Golda Spire. I'm the Affordable Housing Project Manager. I'm here on behalf of Director Carmen Gandula on Resolution 18-0033, Agenda Item 10Z3.
10Z3.
A home investment partnership program agreement with Garden State Episcopal CDC for the Neighborhood Recovery Program, Phase 3 scattered sites.
Yeah, so this was this resolution is to have the council authorize the First Amendment to the original agreement, which was signed, I think, November 2014. At the time of the application, Garden State proposed to acquire 3 two-family units, rehab them, and have them be 6 rentals in total. What this amendment will do is have those 3 two-family homes be ownership for 3 homeowners, and then the other 3 rentals that are attached to the 2 families will be low to mod income rentals to help subsidize the owner and their cost burden. And there will be no changes to the subsidy that was already allocated, and that's pretty much it.
So then my question is, what is the benefit to change 6 rental unit to 3 home ownership and 3 rental? What is the benefit to city of Jersey?
Home
ownership. Yeah.
So at the time of the proposal, since then, acquisition prices have gone up a lot in Jersey City, so the original budget isn't making as much sense today to keep it as 6 rentals. It's a lot easier for the developer to do 3 ownership with 3 rentals because of the ongoing operating costs that are associated with rentals. So it's to help the developer meet their goals of achieving 6 affordable units for the municipality, as well as just create more affordable housing. The Division of Community Development, we identify ownership as a priority, so this will help ownership. When it comes to these 2-family units, they tend to be more appropriate for ownership and rental rather than rental and rental, just because of the nature of the detached 2-family units rather than a multiplex rental. It just will be a more appropriate use of this.
More people that care about to stabilize the area.
It follows
more.
the old neighborhood stabilization program. They call it the Neighborhood Recovery Program now. It's a different grant that they use, which is home funding.
Okay, thank you. Good luck with that train. Matt Hogan. Matt has a late item.
That's the item that was not on the agenda. The item that was given to you. It's 10Z21, Resolution 18-051. It's a resolution authorizing the payment of claim submitted by Dr. Ralph Riccardi Jr. for providing professional services to the city in connection with various litigation.
Okay, is there any, well, this is your first time seeing this, so do you want to explain this, Matt?
Basically, Dr. Riccardi provides expert witness services for our law department for various liability claims filed against the city. During the course of the year, we changed the process of payment. Formerly used to pay through the IFC. Now we pay it through City Council. The majority of the bills came from April forward through December 2017. I worked with the law department to craft a resolution to ratify an agreement to get a purchase order agreement with Dr. Riccardi. The law department withdrew that resolution. Their opinion was that an agreement for this type of service would jeopardize the expert witness opinion in our litigation. So I went back and forth with trying to appease the purchasing agent and the law department on trying to get these paid. Probably let it drag a little longer than necessary, but we've decided, speaking with the purchasing agent going forward in 2018, these will be paid as individual claims, which as a professional service, we won't have to deal with the aggregation issue.
So these are services that are already provided. The doctors already provided expert testimony to the various litigation that the law department has been working with over the last year. So the doctor wants to get paid before he's ever used again. So we call a claim for his services. There's probably 15 to 16 different invoices totaling the $33,000 that you see before you. Services have been rendered, and as Matt explained, there was a little bit of change in process last year. If you recall, the older council people, there were various times during the year we pulled resolutions because purchase orders weren't there. Because we made a decision that any type of professional services should go through our purchasing system and not just automatically get funneled through the insurance fund commission without council's knowledge. So it was a change of process. This got one of those things that got caught up in that and then just accumulated, and now we're just trying to clean it up for 2017. As Matt said, we've agreed to a new process for 18 where the purchasing agent will issue purchase orders moving forward, so we won't have this problem again.
Councilman?
Yeah.
Orthopedic. So you use it for everything in the city?
It's not us, it's the law department. department issue, so I would defer to them on this.
So Joanne, so do you guys use an orthopedic for like everything that happens in the city?
I'm sorry, I was not paying attention.
I
I really am sorry.
It depends on the
That's
specialty
terrible.
you use for the claim. They use for psychovalve, a doctor. For orthopedic, Dr. Riccardi performs most of them. Yeah, depending on the specialty of the claim.
We're not using orthopedic for everything.
No.
If you read this, you know, that's like he does
No,
everything.
because most of the claims are trip and falls or slip and falls, an orthopedic is required.
Any other questions? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Director Joe Cunha from Traffic and Engineering.
Joe.
He has 10Z2.
You don't know how to keep it short.
No, it's impossible.
And 10Z4. Z2, Z4.
Good evening, Council. Happy New Year. Congratulations. I look forward to working with you all and forging a very strong communicative relationship with the incoming new council members. Yeah, is that the wrong word? Is that even a word? I don't.
It is now.
I'll be giving out my contact info so we can set up some subsequent meetings and discuss, especially in your ward. There's some hot items coming up very shortly. Okay, Z2. Yes, the Department of Transportation made available approximately, they told us $28 million statewide, which ended up being an actual $32 million pool statewide for freight-related roadway improvements. We had to meet a certain percentage of truck traffic in the roadways that we selected to apply for. After doing an exhaustive search throughout the city, most of our freight-related roadways are either county-owned, state-owned, or other agency-owned. And the one corridor that seemed to make the most sense was the connection between Route 185 up through Linden Avenue, continuing through Caven Point, all the way down to and including the Burma Circle, Bayview Extension piece, all the way into and including the very, very dilapidated roadways in the industrial area behind the Liberty State Park. Last year we made more of an emergency type repair on Thomas McGovern Drive. As you know, that is an emergency through route that we choose to use, especially sometimes during the July 4th celebration. So that portion of the roadway would be the only portion that we wouldn't be repairing because it doesn't need to be done. And our estimate is approximately $5 million, just over $5 million. We hope to get $3 million, $3.5 million at least in grant money here, and the rest would be supplemented through capital funding, which we would request from you in our capital request. Yeah, we thought this was a very viable, I think you all know, Caven Point Road is starting to deteriorate. We will also be looking to add bicycle infrastructure along that route, and as much as possible pedestrian facilities, possibly including a walkway, sidewalk all the way up one side at a minimum, and additional lighting. So I ask that you approve this resolution authorizing the submission. I apologize that it is after the fact, but the DOT does allow us 1 month grace period after the submission. The key was getting our traffic studies complete and all the backup materials required for the grant to get us in the door, which we did. And now this is the final piece of the puzzle. So I ask for your approval on that.
You mentioned bicycle infrastructure. What specifically would you guys be thinking of?
We're looking at the possibility of, if we can, depending on the grant amount that we get, ideally, in a perfect world, we would like to add a shared raised pedestrian/bike walkway along the eastern side of Caven Point Road, try to integrate it into the circle, and then look to the future for future projects to take that north all the way through Liberty Science Center, and hopefully one day the Jersey Avenue Bridge extension. And this is all part of a bicycle master plan that we are working on currently. Actually, the RFP is ready to go out very shortly. Barca is also working on that as well with us. So that's what we would ideally like to have, because that would offer protection to bicyclists as well. But it really depends on the room on the roadway. We would have to probably shift the roadway west we would lose the shoulder on the west side. I need to vet that through emergency services and public safety.
When will you have a sense of, will that be included or not?
So we anticipate getting an answer from the DOT by approximately June of this year, and by then we'll be able to know almost immediately whether we can do that.
Okay.
Okay, other questions?
Could I ask some off topic?
Sure.
April, when April come, will you start Martin Luther King Drive and Monticello Avenue?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. We
just wanna
have
make
two long anticipated.
Okay.
I must say, well planned. We've had plenty of time to plan it. The reason why we haven't actually broken ground yet is because the federal project needs to take the precedence here. The federal project consists of the 9 intersections only, signals, pedestrian facilities, and paving in the intersections, the 9 northmost intersections of MLK Drive, at which point we will then implement the grant that we have and the capital money to pave from one end to the other, have a complete project. We've been in contact pretty frequently with the Jackson Hill Neighborhood Association. They're thrilled. They are aware of our timeline. So yes, we will be going to bid shortly on that and looking to break ground early spring.
That's what Councilman Richard Bojan was saying.
Pershing Field Racetrack. We have
Yeah.
not forgotten the racetrack. We need some additional communication. There is some funding available, but the issue with the rubberizing is going to have to be a phase 2 or a secondary plan, because the key would be, and we're very familiar with the facility. We went there. We had a few contractors look at it. We have a price. The price is actually more beneficial than what we originally thought. It's lower to place asphalt. Now, rubber is a different story. So, like we said before, rubber could cost as much as the asphalt itself, but the key is we'll be able to salvage most of the drainage facilities. The drainage facilities have been cleaned and they are working, nothing broken as of right now. Let's see what this winter does. But we are anticipating that we can knock this out in the spring, but we need a little bit more planning on that end.
Do you have the money?
We have the money to get phase 1, which would be the hardscaping portion, which is the asphalt down. I believe that money was reappropriated to other park facilities.
Park project that was, I'll have to look tomorrow for you, Councilman.
Listen, this is going on for 4.5 years now. I could care less about another park project. The seniors up in Ward C and Ward D want this done. And we're tired of hearing excuses, not from you, Joe.
No, I understand.
We're tired of hearing excuses.
Yeah.
And it's getting to be old rhetoric. We want it done.
Yeah, there's a lot of divots in the track, and it's difficult to maintain.
And I'll tell you something, maybe he should sue the city and other people who are getting hurt on that track.
Definitely rubber though, right?
Look, they don't want asphalt, they don't want asphalt. The seniors don't want asphalt. I don't know what else you could put there, rubber or whatever else, but the track's gotta
It
get
would be a
done.
combination of both. It would be the asphalt as the base and then the rubber on top.
4.5 years, enough is enough.
They will put it.
Z4.
You were there.
Yeah.
Z4 is a resolution. This is actually a formality. The DEP, the NJDOT in coordinating the Route 7 Whitpen Bridge project, which we are all long awaiting the completion of, needs to access portions of the city property adjacent to the embankments and the abutments of the bridge. As part of building those abutments and embankments, they will need to do some excavating, and that will involve the mitigation of groundwater being pulled out of those excavations so that they can work in a dry condition, discharged to the river. That requires a TWA permit from the NJDEP, which they have applied for and gotten approval. The final step to the approval is your all governing body sign-off allowing this to occur. So basically, DEP takes the lead as far as contaminants and the enforcement to make sure that the dewatering, which is what it's known as, is done properly and there are no additional exceedances and contamination being sent into the river, the Hackensack River to be exact. So that's what this is. They cannot proceed without this resolution being ratified. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right.
Director Kears. Director Kears, Director of Office of Emergency Management. Z14 to Z16.
Z14, Z16.
Z13 to 16.
Shay took care of 14, yeah.
Okay.
Z16, right?
And Z15 is a resolution authorizing the award of contract to Gold Type Business Machines for the purchase, delivery, installation, automated license plate recognition cameras under state contract for Office of Emergency Management, Homeland Security, funded through the fiscal year 17 Urban Area Security Initiative Grant. And Z16 is a resolution authorizing the award of a contract to Software House International for the subscription of the SWIFT 911 mass notification system on the state contract funded through fiscal year 17 Urban Area Security Initiative Grant for the Office of Emergency Management, Homeland Security.
Thank you, Sean. Mr. President, members of the new members of the council, welcome. Look forward to working with you, and the members of the old council. But I don't mean old for you, Rich. I just meant old, that's all. Director Shea had spoke on Z14, so that's already done. 1845 is an award to Gold Type Business Machines to purchase, deliver, and install 3 stationary automated license plate readers, ALPRs for short, at locations predetermined by the Jersey City Police Department for a total of $41,912.97. That's being funded through the FY15 UASI grant. What these automated license plate readers are, Director Shea had alluded to before, phase 2, the cameras are coming up now. We've been using our ComStat and crime maps and shoot maps to determine where the crime is. Obviously, that's where we're looking to place other electronic devices. That'll help us, determine who's committing these crimes, and it'll allow us to also move towards preventing these crimes from occurring.
Questions? None. Next items, 10Z16.
And that's 18046. It's an award of contract to Software House International for a 1-year subscription of our Swift Reach 911 mass notification system. That's under a New Jersey state contract for a total of $59,500. That is funded through the FY 2017 UASI grant.
But we did very similar things like last year, 2 years ago. Texting things.
Yeah, it's a renewal.
It's a renew?
Yes.
But let me ask you this, how many times do we use it?
We use it quite often, believe it or not. We've used it quite frequently in the last couple of weeks, obviously with, weather conditions and things of that nature. We have the capabilities of doing 3 levels of notification. Every phone number, every hardline phone number is in the system. We can do targeted deliveries throughout the different wards of the city. We can do text, we can do SIMs. It's all when people sign up as to how they want to, utilize it.
So now, how many people so far sign up there?
Basically, everybody who has a hardline phone in the system is in there. That's pretty much, we buy the subscription, the company buys a subscription from Verizon, the primary hardline service provider. So if we have to do a citywide blast, we can just, utilize it's all subscribers, which would be all Jersey City people with a hardline phone. But we have people that are, sign up voluntarily. A lot of times with these systems, you see peaks and valleys. A lot of times you'll see people will sign up before an anticipated event, like if we have a hurricane or something like that, and then people will drop off. We maintain approximately 2,000 households throughout the city. We try and push it as much as we can, but, I think in the news media today blasts so much information out. People sometimes, they don't want to hear bad news coming, But it's a good system because we can use it for other areas. I know Bob's office has used it for information regarding tax bills and things like that.
Oh, we do that too? Tax bills?
We can use it for that. We've used it once or twice before. Resell it up.
How do the public sign up?
It's right on the city webpage, Councilman. And what I like about it, we've pretty much tailored it one of the big concerns we've always had is special needs and the broad scope of what special needs are. So it allows people to go in and say, you know, yes, I have a special need. If I have an oxygenator, for instance, have the oxygen-dependent therapy, we have capabilities to refill them should we know where people have them. If you have a service animal, if you have dialysis needs and things of that nature. So if we're planning for a major weather event or something that could potentially impact the ability of folks to go to those types of locations, we can more or less predetermine assets and pre-stage stuff in place as a system.
So if you don't have if you don't have a computer, right? Some senior citizens, how would you sign up? Other than that, I didn't say
You say right. That's what I tried.
Yeah,
to say.
how would you sign up if you don't know that it's on a city website? I mean, because I'm sure some people out there.
Yeah, we've done outreach to a lot. You know, there was discussion early on when I guess this is about the 5th or 6th year that we've had the system in place. They do outreach on it. You know, we do it through our CERT program. You know, community meetings and things like that. We try and encourage people to sign up for it. To answer your question, they can probably sign off at a phone number calling the company. I believe that's listed on the web page where they can do one-on-one interview and decide how you want to do it. But the majority of the people choose to do it through a computer or smartphone or whatever. It's pretty user-friendly, actually. It was
a year or two ago. So maybe we should do that again.
Can we do it in the newspaper or other ways advertise it? Would it be feasible to put something in? Because I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that have dialysis and oxygen, like you said.
I can tell you this, Castle, we did the announcement for the Turnpike project that was going to take place two Saturdays ago, and obviously I used my office as the return phone call, and within the first probably 2 or 3 hours that we had it up, we had people calling back who either didn't have an answering machine or something. So I mean, it did encourage people. They saw a number on their phone, it wasn't familiar, they'd call back and we'd answer that question. A lot of them were very, very happy. And as a result of that, we've seen a little bit of an uptick with the, the actual signing on. The folks that got the phone calls came through the normal Verizon numbers, the hotline numbers.
So, Bob, this is we spent $60,000 and only 2,000 people subscribe their service, then almost $30 each person's, so it's a lot of money. So in other words, he's the one of the best director in Jersey City. We gotta create some kind of plan, how we gonna more encourage people to join this program, you know what I'm saying? Because I didn't even know that well, and I don't know what I have to do. In other words, Councilman Robinson, where are you?
Put your glasses on.
Oh, yeah.
He's signing up, doesn't he?
Oh, he is. Now he's invisible. So it's a lot of senior and who pay attention to all those issues more likely, and there's no way to actually to get in this kind of program. So we gotta find out some way to, even though we spend some dollars, it's a great system, but actually we spend the $60,000. Yes, only 2,000 people join it, I think.
So, I mean, last week, one of my assistants sent out an email about how to subscribe to the system. I can forward it again to the council. You can share it with constituents. Thank you. I will work with the press secretary and see if we can get it communicated through Jersey Journal and some other means to make sure the seniors have access to it as well as the social media savvy people.
Each council people has like a Facebook, so on. So their social networks, thousands of people probably they have that.
But also to Councilman Robinson's point, letting people know the other components that you can utilize if you sign up. It's not just for emergency alerts, it's also to let people know if you have certain health concerns, like with the med alert bracelets and things like that. I think that would also be more compelling. And I do have a question. Is there a cap to the number of residents that can sign up for the service?
No, one of the reasons we originally went with this Swift Reach 911, it's pretty much unlimited. It's targeted for a city of our size, so we're approximately 300,000 people, and the business community, we have quite a few of the business community sign into it too. So it's pretty,
so
pretty
it's 300,000 residents plus business
Yep.
community. We have the capability to
Yeah,
let it
there's no
grow
cap
with
on
us.
what-
Right,
yeah,
okay.
Who has the data?
As far as the what would go,
Enrolls and registers?
we maintain that ourselves. It's right available from the webpage.
So it's not given to anybody. It's just
No, secure data.
I'm signed up for the service, it's great, I get the alerts on my text.
You know, I think I signed it too. A lot of people actually, we gotta look into the way Councilman Robinson mentioned today, seniors, you know, they are not, you know what I'm saying, so we gotta find some way to, you know.
We may even, you know, be able to work with Division of Senior Affairs, you know, if they have their different programs, I could have our sub coordinator. You know, we've actually done field registration at some locations, you know, and it's worked. When we do our CERT program, we're the only city in the state that has a senior citizen-specific CERT program for our senior housing. So I know Paul has done it at both 92 Danforth and Ocean Avenue location. I believe he's done it at one up in the Heights also.
So Bob, so there was some critical flyer, so circulate the council people so we can contact with our, you know, resident to know which word, okay?
Yes, sir.
Great.
Perhaps you could provide an incentive for people to register, maybe like a raffle or something?
Yeah, we can do that.
Couple $100.
Councilperson will donate something to the raffle.
No.
I'll donate something.
It's a homeowners in 1 year property tax free. Sounds great, right?
I'll take that out of the council's budget.
Yeah. Wow. You can do that.
Okay.
You better check with Commerce before they.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Kearse.
Thank you. Take a good work. By the way.
Okay.
All right, from the top.
Yes.
3A was touched on earlier. Any questions on 3B?
Hold on one second.
3B is the automated self-park robotic parking garages.
Yes.
If you remember, this was introduced to the council last year. Councilman Yun raised some concerns about consumer protections, and subsequently since then, it's been amended to include some of those protections, and Councilman Solomon, I believe you included some, did you include some amendments as well? No.
Yeah, you're gonna look at that, yeah. I mean, I think there are probably a couple questions, but the one question I had was, reading in the back, it said the ordinance sunsets after 2 years. And I was wondering if there was a reason why there was a sunset clause in the ordinance.
That's what was proposed. I guess they wanted to do it as an experiment to see how it operated, if there were a lot of complaints,
Sure.
maybe they.
Makes sense.
That's what I have.
That seems reasonable, but I just wanted to clarify.
So we can revalidate that the other job too, right?
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, one thing is this, when I spoke with Councilman James Solomon, and Consumer Protection Council person mentioned to that, they posted that they claim the damage is so-and-so, but we just want to add one just word, the post sign minimum at least 2 by 3 foot, that's all. Can't we do that? Yeah. 2 by, yeah. Just a size.
Where was that amendment going to go?
So then go in that, okay, that the, what is it, 2000, here you go, 236-10.
Well, Councilman, just from James Labianca is not here today, he's one of the existing corporation councils, so I think.
We can do it easily.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have.
Just give it, just let us.
Yeah, let us know what you want.
Yeah, just 236, yeah, simple, just one word. If you read that, just one word, the postal sign, minimum size, 2 foot by 3 foot, that's all.
What section are you?
What section is the, page 2, page 2, 236-10, parking sign resolution of the customer service issues.
Letter C?
C or A, yes, yeah, C.
Oh, so you want to add back in this, what was struck out, the height?
Yes, the height, the not less than 8 foot, yeah. So height, just we say that at least a 2 by 3.
Right, size.
Size,
All
of
right.
the size.
It's not, defined print you can't read.
They can put your sign this size, then nobody can read, right? So at least like a, parking lot, 2 foot by 3, you have a claim damage, claim so-and-so. So fair enough, right? Okay, good, thank you.
So do we require, or are they gonna be required to have like, emergency people on staff? You know, like, so elevators go out in the building, because computers usually break, it's gonna be automated. How would one get out of the parking garage?
See, based on when we discuss, they have a special teams available, they respond right away.
24 hours?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what they say.
And the teams are on-site or off-site?
It's offsite.
Offsite.
And then what would be the response time, do we know?
No.
No?
because it's,
This is never been done.
no, this is the first time.
Yeah, first time. I mean, because 94 Union elevators went out last night, so all the seniors were sitting in the lobby.
Right.
They have one in New York that's been operating for
Yeah.
some number of years, but not in Jersey City.
And so can we see, or have you guys already seen some of the information on the number of times it's
There's one
broken
been built in
down?
downtown Jersey City.
Yeah, this is the first time in there.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is there a way for us to look at data from New York on the, how successful the program is?
Yes,
how many times
actually
it's
very
broken,
interesting.
How many times it's shut down, what the response time was for people, how long they had to wait to get their cars out? Was it an hour? Was it 2 hours? Was it once every 3 months? Was it just once when it was snowing?
Based on, when we have a meeting, based on they say, so far they have no issue.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Yes, no
That's what
issue.
they say, but is that what they've shown?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They, based on they say that no issue so far.
But it's anecdotal, there's no hard data.
So in the future, you know, this is the first
require
ordinance.
With this order.
If we have those
Okay.
things, we can amend
So
it later on.
if this ordinance passes, then we can require them to provide us that data?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just request the data from them.
That's all.
Okay, no, I just, this is the first time I'm reading about it, so I just want to make
No,
sure
you can.
I understand what this is asking of
You
us.
can require it.
Okay.
Just some context for this. This was introduced last year. It came by way of the developer, because when they built this automated garage in a property in downtown, and then they checked the laws afterwards, realized that the laws require that it be not automated, but actually the person, an attendant, be there, right? So they then came forward and said, you know, we want to be compliant with the law, and so they're trying to amend, they've asked to amend the laws and work with the law department on that. And in fact, right now that parking lot is built, but it's not active, and it's kind of sitting dormant, waiting for this ordinance to kind of get enacted in that regard.
No, they're talking about a robotic garage in one of the developments over by the Yellow Square a couple of years ago, so.
Okay.
And when we say robotic, are we saying that there's actual machinery that are moving vehicles
Yes,
around?
yes.
And there's nobody there
No.
to monitor?
Right.
Kind of cool.
Says the girl who still wants the crank window because she likes to pop open the side and fix it herself.
But you know what, actually,
Cool, but not cool.
council, when we have a problem like those kind of response time, then after we pass that, we amend that, putting that they must have to be the response in 2 hours or 1 hour, whatever, you know what I'm
Okay, so
saying?
this is just that first step?
Right.
Okay, got it, clear, thank you.
Okay. 3C. Any questions on 3C, the hotel?
Let me speak to this. It's ask Bob from the hotel workers to join me up here. So this is an ordinance that requires developers, mandates that developers, hotel projects who are receiving redevelopment area bonds to execute a no-strike pledge agreement. So if they have a collective bargaining agreement or other agreement that contain a no-strike pledge as a result. So this, and correct me if I'm wrong, the law department, same basis is similar to our project labor agreements, with the idea that redevelopment area bonds and the idea of being a market participant. And so with hotels, being a market participant in this regard allows the city to be able to exercise this, because we want to make sure that if we're putting redevelopment money and our investment in there, that we are, we ensure there's no labor strife and problems with Jersey City, and that we can continue to have this the economy to continue moving along. Am I correct?
Yeah, it doesn't purport to be as broad as the PLA, nor should it to be enforceable. That's why it is targeted only to redevelopment area bonded projects. That makes the city a market participant. Having a tax abatement is not enough, according to federal judges. So this is very targeted.
Yeah, no, I'll just point out, I think while we've represented certain hotels in Jersey City for a long time, and we've had hundreds of our members, hotel workers who live in Jersey City for a long time, I think our having a dialogue and this kind of a conversation and getting some policy work done in the city of Jersey City is a more new dynamic. I'm not going to take up more of your time this evening to lay out all the details about who we are. I just want to encourage everyone to Feel free to get my contact information if you want to learn more about us. I will say about the legislation, while it's really important and the legal rationale is, of course, protecting the payments that the city is entitled to from piloted properties, the reason we are for it, of course, is that what it does is it requires an agreement between the employer and the union where we agree to give up a number of federally protected rights, strikes, pickets, boycotts, etc. And the question is why, and the reason we do that is because in exchange for that, we get from the company an agreement for them to lay down their arms, so to speak. So they don't do lockouts, they don't run anti-union campaigns. The typical pushback you get from an anti-union employer who doesn't want to see a union in their shop for whatever reason, all of that is not allowed to happen under the terms of the agreement. And as a result, if and when workers choose to organize a union, they have an environment that's free from intimidation and an anti-union campaign and a very typical feeling among workers, even ones who respect their employers, but who might have a desire for a union. A very typical dynamic is that they're worried, well, if I put my name out there and I start doing organizing, could I lose my job? So all of that becomes neutral, and as a result, we work in a very specific manner with the employer to make sure that if workers choose to organize a union, it happens in a smooth and stable fashion. So that's, of course, good for the city of Jersey City in these scenarios where it's a tax-abated property, but it's also good for workers because as a result, they have a means to organize a union and to get really excellent wages, benefits, and working conditions, especially when you compare them to non-union.
There's nothing to be done based on this agreement. If they're not treated right, if the employer...
There is something that can be done, which instead of there being a strike or a picket, which would happen in where they don't have an agreement, the result would be typically what we do, and this doesn't go into the legislation, but typically what we do is we choose a third-party arbitrator, and so binding arbitration is the preferred mode for settling disputes, rather than a picket line going up in front of the hotel, so to speak. Because the right of the city in the scenario is to protect its bottom line. So a hotel where the developers receive this type of a tax abatement is supposed to be paying the city pilot payments, right? And a strike, theoretically, a strike at a hotel where that impacted revenues or a boycott or a picket line or anything else that's really considered legally economic action would impact the city's bottom line. So that is both something to be avoided, but also, from where we sit, a tool the city can and should use to encourage positive labor relations, which ultimately benefits those workers.
Project with redeveloped bond what we issue. So we're going to make sure that if the developer, if it have mispaid their bond, the city of Jersey is responsible. So we're going to try to protect that continue to be able to do business, so they can make a payment on time to city of Jersey bond payment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm more concerned about the employee. Because a lot of times, even on these jobs we have now, they treat it horrible.
Yeah.
We have that now, so.
Yep, I appreciate.
I'm getting ready to take away their right. I'm like kind of nervous here.
Yeah. I understand the concern about that, but this is really, this is the only way in this type of a situation where a hotel is not yet built, and you want to bind a developer for employees who are only hypothetical at the point. This is unfortunately the only way to get them to sit down and to come to terms with an agreement. Ultimately, I will emphasize, what that agreement leads to is hopefully unionization. And then after unionization comes collective bargaining. That collective bargaining agreement is something entirely different, and that sets the stage for what those jobs are really going to look like. And I'd be happy to walk you through that agreement. We actually just came to an agreement that hasn't yet been ratified, but for Jersey City hotels, which is by the end of its term all workers are going to be making over $15 an hour. They're going to have 4 hours paid on election day to go vote and partake so there's a lot of really good rights that they're going to get that they would never have a chance at getting. Well, they're not even working yet. That's right. They legally. Mm-hmm.
And we don't know how long that agreement will take, right? So they can, let's say a project do come, they can pay them less than $15 an hour, right?
If before their union, yes.
Yes,
because which they can and do at any hotel that's non-union today. Yeah. And we're in the business of changing that. So yeah. So this is our way into those shops, so to speak.
Tied to RABs and abatements, when the abatements expires, would the no pledge agreement expire? Would it matter at that point in time because they've already set up collective bargaining and they already have the union set up?
If the union was so negligent as to not do anything with its labor peace agreement and not approach the workers in an organizing campaign for the length of the term of the pilot, then hypothetically yes, but I can't even imagine that happening.
Right. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Okay. And then you said a couple hundred, but do you have some hard numbers on how many hotel workers are in your union and then also working in Jersey City, so we get an idea of how many jobs are impacted?
Sure.
Or could be impacted.
Yep. So our total union membership is 35,000, but most of them are across the river in New York City, which is our base. Right. We have a total of 5,000 members across northern New Jersey. Jersey City has the highest concentration, so it has 692 of our members, as of the last count a couple days ago, are living in Jersey City. So they don't all work in Jersey City. A lot of people work in Manhattan or anywhere else. We have 300 total hotel workers who work at the 3 hotels that where we represent the workers. That's the Hyatt Regency, the Candlewood Suites, and the Westin. And of those 300, half of them also live in Jersey City. The remainder live in various places, but for the most part, they're communities like North Bergen, Union City, and Newark.
Can this adversely affect any parties involved? I mean, developers, workers.
I don't see how it could. I mean, I think if you asked a hotel developer or hotel employer who was vehemently anti-union and was really counting on the ability to pay their workers as little as they could possibly pay them and provide as few benefits as they could possibly pay them and provide awful working conditions, and they really had their hearts set on that, that might be an example of someone who might say, you know what, I really don't want you to make me do this. But other than that, I mean, even to a typical employer, you're giving them labor peace, as Councilwoman Waterman pointed out. They're getting labor peace, and of course, in exchange, that we're going to demand the best jobs that we can get. But it'll always be, you know, all of our union hotels are successful properties, and it's not in our interest to put anyone out of business. So no, I can't. I can't imagine anyone who would be adversely affected, except for someone who had the wrong idea for how to run a business in the first place.
So let me, Council President, let me the law department. If any they build the hotel without redevelopment bond, they're not getting okay, good.
Right.
Okay.
And it's only for so long as the redevelopment area bond is outstanding. Okay. So I think that really should be clarified, so there's a term in the actual ordinance, and we'll do that, we'll add a
Okay, you're gonna do that, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So we protect the people, okay? Yeah.
So they're gonna make an amendment, and that amendment will come to the council on or before the Wednesday meeting, which will include some language about duration related to the length of the RAB.
You're just you're correcting the ordinance, right? We're not making an amendment.
Oh, correct.
No,
Yeah.
right.
It hasn't been introduced yet,
Exactly.
right? So it's still,
Exactly.
technically it's not introduced, even though it's here before you, but we'll introduce it at the council meeting. And so there'll be a replacement.
And it's implied, but not explicit.
Right.
So.
All right, so we'll make it
Sorry, just
clear.
to help me understand.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just walk through the timeline? So developer comes in and they propose a new hotel, work out an agreement with the city on a tax abatement and the RAB. And then how does this agreement then function going forward until there's hopefully a negotiated settlement?
Right, so that developer may or may not also be the hotel operator. And the hotel operator is who matter because that's the employer.
Right.
And in some cases, you might have, I don't want to predict how hotel development might continue in Jersey City, but in some cases you might not even have an operator selected.
Right.
So that developer, through being bound, the operator will also be bound to the agreement. And then when that operator is selected, we execute the labor peace agreement with the operator as well. When the hotel is open and operating, they're then responsible for hiring workers. So unlike the construction industry, there isn't a hiring hall where workers belong to have the privilege of belonging to a union and then get work that way. In this case, the employer, once they get up and running, they hire workers. Once they're operational and they've hired those workers, then we go speak to them, and of course we urge them to join a union. It's very rare that workers in this industry, especially when they have a labor peace agreement, choose not to. Then there's a process by which they in majority fashion indicate that they want a union, after which once they present those formal cards or votes, that the union is certified, and now they have the union and the protection of a union, but they still don't have a collective bargaining agreement. And then after their union, now they have the right to collectively bargain. And they then collectively bargain and they come to an agreement, and that agreement can be from, our typical agreements are for 5 years. The one we're about to do for statewide and Jersey City-wide is going to be a 5-year agreement. It's called the Hotel Trades Council. Mm-hmm.
And just, would there be a possibility where you've signed a strike pledge, where the hotel could just sort of like stretch out the negotiating period and never sign a collective bargaining agreement? Or?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we, through our binding arbitration process, we're able to get, in cases where someone tries tricks like that.
You have an arbitration process.
Yeah, we'll have we often demand first contract binding arbitration, because that first contract is the one that really matters to get things started. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is going for introduction with be replaced with a few revisions, minor revisions, right?
Yes, one sentence in section 304-27.4.
Okay.
To say the obligation will endure only for the life of the RAB or something similar.
Yeah, and just to clarify that if a developer chooses not to, chooses not to get a RAB, and which usually comes with the tax abatement in that regard, and or will hopefully come with the tax abatement in that regard, likely, then they will not be committed to these requirements, but the price that they pay for this is to get a RAB and the tax abatement. As a result, is a labor peace around this. So, as well as an agreement with the union around this. So, ask for your consideration and your support for this. I spoke with Councilman Solomon, and he asked to be added as a sponsor, yes? Yep. If anyone else wants to be added as a sponsor, yeah, we invite you to,
where did Rich go?
to be a sponsor of the ordinance, and let me know, and prior to for reading, we'll add any sponsors to the ordinance that request that, okay? Yep. Thank you. So let's move on, 3D.
3D.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Read it into the record, Sean.
It's an ordinance ratifying the approval of the sale of affordable housing project located at 413-419 Arlington Avenue, 750-766 Grand Street, 64-66 Harmon Street, to Emmanuel Realty pursuant to the Limited Dividend Nonprofit Housing Corporations or Associations Law, NJSA 55:16-1, and the transfer and assignment of the project's tax exemption.
We have John Hallinan here.
Mr. President, members of the council, good evening. Happy New Year. Apparently I'm the last man standing here, so sorry I don't have more of an audience, but this is a pretty standard tax abatement assignment. We did something very similar for those members of the council who were here in the last legislative term with Muhlenberg Gardens in Councilman Yunn's ward, a senior housing project operating under the old tax abatement statute, since repealed, the limited dividend statute. Basically, this project has a new owner, and they would like to have the abatement, which was initially applied to the previous owner, applied to them. The abatement is set to expire no later than 50 years. Again, this is the old statute since repealed. Other than that, they're walking into the agreement as it was originally written. They're just taking on the original obligation. So it is an affordable housing project. It will stay affordable for the duration of the abatement, paying the same rate that it was initially paying. Any other questions? The attorney for the operator is here, and I believe
I had something, Joanne or John. When we had the conversation in the agenda meeting, you explained to me that there were certain criteria that, with regard to transferring an abatement, that we have an obligation, I guess I would suggest, that as a council, to approve a transfer unless it didn't meet certain criteria.
Ordinarily, that's true. In this case, maybe less so, because they did come in after the fact. That is.
After the sale.
Yes, and the agreement provides that they are supposed to apply to the city for the approval of the assignment and sale prior to the closing, which they failed to do. And so by operation of law, then the tax assessor puts the property back on the tax rolls, generating a tax bill, and that does tend to bring people to the office. And if this was a commercial owner, you might feel differently and say, well, you know what, you were late, you should have done your due diligence, and we will not approve this after the fact. But sometimes there are extenuating circumstances, especially for an affordable housing developer, and you want to do all you can to preserve affordable housing and not create a situation where we will actually lose housing, especially in this area where there is, in fact, somewhat of a threat that the project, in theory, could go market rate if the affordability controls were to end, which could happen, in theory, if the tax abatement was also terminated. So you could also drive the project into possible bankruptcy. There's all sorts of negatives, especially when you're dealing with affordable housing. So the developer's attorney is here, I think, and he should offer some explanation as to why they did not come in, but what they will do to ensure that the affordability controls continue and that something like this doesn't happen again.
Yeah. Good evening, Council. My name is John Losinger. I'm from the law firm of Sabre LLC, and I represent the owner of the properties. As was pointed out earlier, this is an affordable housing units, 51 affordable housing units in these 2 apartment buildings. When my client, Emmanuel Realty, whose managing agent is here with me tonight, in case there's any factual questions that you may have, he may be able to answer. When Emmanuel Realty purchased the property in November of 2016, they bought it with the full intention of continuing it on as a HUD program. They were under the impression that the seller was going to go through the process with Jersey City to have the tax abatement transferred or assigned to them as the buyer. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The seller never notified us that they didn't do that, take that step in the process, and it didn't happen. As the buyer, my client went through with HUD. We've continued it to be a HUD affordable housing project for the year that we've owned it. It's, you know, there was no glitch or gap in the process. It's continued on as an affordable housing project and will continue to be so in the future. We completely thought that the tax abatement was continuing. Payments were made under the prior tax abatement agreement, and it wasn't until the added assessment came from the tax assessor's office that our client became aware of this mistake and sought immediately to correct it. I think they learned of the mistake in October and I think in November, and then we filed in December to try to have this corrected. So it's just a matter of correcting something that frankly fell through the cracks before my office was involved. But we're trying to correct the issue and trying to keep this affordable housing project where it is so that it's not lost. And frankly, I think as council pointed out, it would be a benefit to Jersey City to keep it. And it would be the same tax abatement agreement that has been in place since 1982, under which the city gets, I think it's 6.82% of the gross revenues.
Do they have any penalty clause if they're not? It's a common sense to, actually, if we transfer the ownership without get proof of the city of Jersey, especially as a tax abatement, then they automatically actually get terminated the tax abatement. That's common sense. If the lawyer missed that, I'm wondering why. And those contracts made October 21st, 2016. 2016, 17, almost a year and a half, you know what I'm saying?
I'm sorry, what was October 2016?
Yeah, 16. The
ownership changes. 2000, November of 2016, the property was purchased. They've owned it for just over a year. And the added assessment came in at the end of 2017, and that's when they learned of the mistake.
Is there any things like a penalty things in there?
A penalty?
Yeah.
No, there's nothing in the agreement. There's nothing in the statute. I mean, you could deny this, but the consequence of that would be, right, the consequence.
Because with the affordable housing units, so they have no transfer fees involved. But most tax abatement, when the ownership change, they usually pay 2% of whatever is a transaction amount paid City of Jersey actually ownership change.
But they typically don't do, first of all, this is an old tax abatement. This is one of like ancient history. I mean, it's so old, I don't even think I had anything to do with it. So that's really old, I know.
Hold on, Joyce.
But
this is a 50-year-old tax abatement, right? Now, they have 14 years left remaining.
Okay.
What will happen after those 14 years?
Then go back to normal.
I mean, abatement's over, like any other abatement.
So then he can
come back and, well, he could do that, but typically if people are committed to affordable housing, what they will do is go back to HUD, and probably by then the project will then need rehabilitation, and they'll go back to HUD and they will seek some loans or grants from them to rehabilitate the project. That will extend their affordability controls, and then the city would then come in and give them another tax abatement.
That's probably a long-term tax abatement.
Yes, not under this statute. This statute is done.
I think if I may, I think the council was posing a question to you as to what's your intention after 14 years.
The intention is to keep it a HUD project, to keep it affordable housing. There's no intention that.
We have 8 more years left in the contract, and we're intending to keep it for 20 more after that.
So after the abatement is over, you're telling us here that you will continue to have it as housing.
That's the intention.
Okay. The intention, or that? Yeah.
That's what we want.
We would seek a new tax abatement with the city, but the intention is to keep it long-term after the expiration of this tax abatement agreement, to keep it long-term as affordable housing.
But didn't you just say that you have a 20-year contract?
Right,
with
you said
HUD?
that.
Correct.
So your obligation to maintain it as affordable housing right now vis-a-vis HUD is 20 years?
I thought
we have 8 more years left on the current one, and then we can extend it for more.
20 years from today?
No, 8 more years from today.
8 more years, and then they can extend it for 20 years, which they intend to do.
Oh, I see. Well, could you send those documents to the council so they could see it? So you could see it.
No, well, that's between HUD. We're talking about the abatement here and their issues with HUD. So the abatement here is up until it expires.
Which is only 14 years.
Right.
But at least you want to make sure that for that 14-year period that there are affordability controls.
That's what we're doing.
But HUD, if the agreement with HUD is only 8 or 8 years, then how will the people continue to afford? Because HUD supplements rent under some program. So I'm just trying to figure out.
Because it's a condition, and that's one of the things that we asked the applicant for, which is
Right.
proof of the affordability controls during at least the 14-year period that it's tax abated. So
Right.
they have to come and show us either by a mortgage, a deed restriction, or an affordability agreement that's recorded and runs with the land, that this will be affordable for the whole term of the tax payment. If they don't produce that, then we won't.
Right, and what we have is, there is a use agreement that's on file with the Hudson County Register of Deeds that's been assigned to us. So it's the original it's in with the deed, and that's been assigned to the new owner, and that's with the authorization of HUD. So that's on file. I have a copy of that. If you'd like it, I can give it to you.
And what's the duration of that?
I can check that. It is. This is the recorded copy. I have a copy in my briefcase that I could give to you after we're through here.
Council people.
Since you took up the units, what kind of capital improvement you made it so far, amount-wise?
I'm sorry?
The capital improvement to those units for the 3 locations. After change ownership, do you have an improvement you made it?
We changed the boiler. It was an oil boiler that we changed it. A hot water heater also. And we did some renovation to your apartment. As soon as somebody moves out, we make some improvements in the apartment before we move somebody in.
So in other words, we're looking for some excuse to prove this ordinance, so how great things you did, even though you didn't come to city council on time to ask to extend it or allow that the ownership change, you're 1 year behind. But if you tell us that, listen, after we took over, we spent $500,000 improvement to so-and-so, so we can look at it. This guy is a very gentleman that we got to continue to provide service in the affordable housing.
The program is basically not because of capital expenditure. It's because of low income housing. It's not because we're spending money on the property. It's because we have 51 units that are low income housing.
Right. But some improvements have been made. I mean, Councilman, I can provide you with a list. We can sit down and we can go through the expenses, and I can provide you with the capital expenses that were made.
After you took over the units, the council meetings Wednesday. Before Wednesday, give us what kind of capital improvement you made to over the 50-some units, you know what I'm saying? So we feel comfortable to extend it or allow that the owners change, you know what I'm saying? Give us something.
You said you changed the
That's fine.
the windows, the projector.
I'm happy to do that.
Things like that.
The duration, did you find that duration?
I couldn't find it quickly. I can provide you with a copy. I just need to look at it more carefully.
If you could share that information with the council secretary, she'll get it out to the city council.
To clarify something, I think when this started, there was sort of it was phrased as if we as the council don't pass the abatement along to you, we'll lose the affordability protections. And I'm wondering what was the basis of that, or did I misunderstand something?
The project wouldn't be financially feasible without the abatement. Okay. So that's what keeping it affordable is they have an abatement. Once the abatement goes away, it jeopardizes the financial viability.
Right, the long-term viability. Okay, but again, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're sort of saying is the deadline was missed, longer conversation about that, and now the city's going to sort of go back and retroactively pass along the abatement back because we don't want the project to collapse. But at the same point, is there anything of sort of, it doesn't have to be monumental, but of sort of value that the city can get from in so doing, whether that be an extension of, an agreement of affordability or something, because the city, it feels like the city's, we're doing something affirmatively to help, and a deadline was missed, and we can just kind of shrug and say, okay, fine, but is there anything the developer can commit to?
I think we really understand where, I get that, except this is an affordable housing project, and generally speaking, their budget, my guess is that it was a condition of your HUD financing, your continuation of your HUD financing to have this tax abatement approved. I'm very surprised they didn't flag it, actually, instead, not just the attorneys at the closing. But in any event, their budgets are very tight. You know, their profitability is very limited. This is a limited dividend. I don't know what is the limitation on your, it's not nonprofit, so what is the limitation on your profit? Do you know the percentage? They're always very low. They're very low if you're dealing with HUD.
That's why it's called a limited dividend. That's very, very limited, yeah.
But I think they need to get us more information. They do not have enough information, frankly. So get it by Wednesday, and then the council will.
So I'm happy to provide what's been requested, but I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So the capital improvements.
I think we just need, the council's looking for proof that there are affordability controls for the 14 years that you are requesting the council to approve the tax abatement, the assignment. And it has to be either in the form of a mortgage, a deed restriction, or an affordability agreement that is recorded. So it can't just be for 8 years. If it's just for 8 years, what I'm hearing from the council is then they only want to extend your tax abatement for 8 years. They need proof that this is going to be affordable for the entirety of the term. So you should be able to do that by Wednesday.
Absolutely.
Right?
Robinson and Ridley.
Did we pay the taxes and we're looking for a refund from the city, or are we in default right now? Because you purchased in 2016. So that means the entire 17, I guess you paid and you're looking for a refund, or you didn't pay?
I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but we paid the abatement amount.
Yeah,
is that right?
we
paid the amount that we thought we owed under the abatement agreement. So that amount was paid, but the added assessment amount was not paid. So some amount has been paid, but the full added assessment amount has not been paid. So we would not be seeking a refund. We would be seeking to maintain the tax abatement.
I believe this got pulled from a tax sale, so therefore it's not as though this was a lien that got sold to a third party and generates all sorts of interest. So that would just be, the city would cancel the conventional taxes.
Ridley?
Is there a copy of the financial plan that was submitted with the application that we could get?
Sure.
To HUD or to the city? Just to the city?
Yes. Based on the requirements that are in the ordinance, I'm assuming it was the application to the city.
Which section are you referring to?
There's an application. On that second page where you have the 2 bullet points.
Yep. Whereas the new entity has provided a financial plan with its application, which assures the successful operation of the project in accordance with the limited dividend housing law. Who has the financial plan?
Probably in the application somewhere.
The application from 1982? From the prior owner?
To show that you are a bona fide buyer who can, in fact, operate the project successfully. There's no sense in this council approving an assignment of a tax abatement to you, and if you're a bankrupt organization, for example.
We haven't had approval that we ran through the chain and to get the approval from them.
Okay.
And number 3 is that after our lawyer Joanne said that after you took over the project, so just any capital input you made, itemize what you do. You know, so because affordable housing unit sometimes they're owning as a management company that neglect the improvement they do that. So I want to make sure that after I took the new ownership, what kind of capital improvement you made it to make the provide a better service that the tenant in your area. Okay.
Okay.
All right. That's all. Okay. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. 51 units, how many are occupied?
51.
All 51. Very low, low income, low mod?
It's very low to low.
Very low to low. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
Get you guys out of here.
We got the resolutions.
All right, resolution authorizing change in custodian of petty cash funds.
Can I just these names are from Colin?
So let me explain what happened here. So the state of New Jersey recently put up a listing of all these resolutions on petty cash. And we were looking at them and we saw they still have people from 1980 as on the as the petty cash custodian. So this is more of a cleanup to remove those people, historical names, and put the more current people on, which is what A and D are.
I'd also like to propose to the council amending our petty cash amount. I'm not sure what the number would be, but increasing it. Beyond
Well, you
$2.
can-
25 at a time.
You get to replenish that,
And
so it's
you
not just
replenish
200 for the year, so you can spend 180.
I understand.
Put a resolution,
Uh,
you know, to get it replenished
You
every.
have to replenish every 200, right?
Right.
And so, law and the mayor are the 1,000. I'm just pointing that out. I'm not saying we need to go to 1,000, it's,
Well, it's for, so mainly the types of things that are covered with that are shipping, postage. I would imagine the law department probably does more of that than we do. It's a smaller operation. We can just use our letterhead. But typically, I mean, I've never run through the whole $200 in the last 3 years.
did we do the flowers?
We did, but that came out of a different line item. You can only spend $25 at a time in petty cash. So, yeah.
It's more like parking reimbursement.
Yeah, so it's just for little things here and there. It's not for flowers.
Yeah, as an FYI, I don't know if I said this to everyone or something, I requested Margaret to send a floral arrangement to Lieutenant Rota on behalf of the city council.
So we have to chip in?
No, it's
From
the
the
city
council.
paper.
City paper.
City paper? Yes.
Okay. 10B is resolution establishing a new petty cash fund for the Division of Community Development. 10C is a resolution establishing a new petty cash fund for the Division of Parking Enforcement. 10D is a resolution rescinding certain petty cash funds. We touched on E through I. J is a resolution reappointing Veronica Park as a member of the Jersey City Medical Center Board of Trustees.
Sean, can I stop you there?
Sure.
Quickly? Just as a question, as when appointments for any of these boards come before the council, I mean, in previous times, do we try to talk to the people? Is there any kind of conversation, or is it generally pro forma approval of these different boards?
You can certainly speak to him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So you, okay.
Great idea.
So does, do they
I'm
provide
surprised
contact
their
information?
Resume isn't attached.
The only reason why the resume is not attached is a reappointment.
It was a
but if you-
reappointment,
if
that's
you-
why.
So
We have new
reappoint,
council people.
okay.
Yes, understood. And I can get the three of you the resume for Veronica Park.
Yeah,
I'll send that to you guys.
That would be great.
No
And
problem.
I think that there's one other person maybe, or just Veronica?
She
Just
was the
Veronica,
only
I guess.
one that
Okay.
is on.
Hold on one quick second.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, and 10K is a resolution thanking and honoring Peter and Michael Paganis for their generosity and commitment to the community. 10L, if you allow me, 10L through 10V are all resolutions authorizing the business administrator to execute a discharge of mortgage affecting the following properties: 74 Armstrong, 143 Bidwell, 26 Broadman Parkway, and there's two of them for 26 Broadman Parkway, one for $34,050 and the other for $2,475. That's why we have the amounts in parentheses. 260 Claremont Avenue, 112 Kearney Avenue, 90 Patterson Street, 87 Romaine Avenue, 104 Virginia Avenue, 13 Warner Avenue, and 21 Woodlawn Avenue. 10W is a resolution authorizing the execution of a mortgage subordination agreement affecting 312-314 Van Horn Street. 10X is a resolution authorizing the City of Jersey City risk manager to issue certificates of insurance to certain nonprofit and public agencies. Okay.
Quickly on 10X, Joanne, at some point I'd love to sit down with you guys. Some of the universities listed here are my employers, so I want to understand, what I should and shouldn't vote on. I think my gut would just be to recuse and not vote just to be safe, but I'd love to talk to you guys, not now, but in another point on this.
No, that's very important.
Sure.
Good to bring up.
Your own
Yep.
protection, it's a very important thing, to understand conflicts of interest and.
So, 10.1 is a resolution removing a restriction from deed of conveyance that affects the address of 13-15 Olean Avenue. 10Z through 10Z5 were touched on earlier. 10Z6 is a resolution authorizing the execution and performance of the takeover agreement in order to permit Sorority to complete the remaining work to be performed under contract regarding the construction of the City of Jersey City West District Police Precinct.
Yes, how much is the remaining?
So this is for $105,000. So basically, there was punch list items that the contractor failed to complete through an extensive legal process and negotiation between the contractor, the surety company, and the law department. The surety company is going to hire another contractor, not the one that didn't do the work in the first place, to finish it for the remaining balance of the contract that we didn't pay the original contractor. So it's $105,000 worth of work. Yes, sir.
It's not the punch list. If we see the scope of remaining work, like item 14, 15, 16, this is really serious issue. It's not just a minor punch list.
I mean, it's $105,000 worth of work, so it is not minor, so I didn't mean to minimize it. But there's a whole host of things that we found wrong that we wanted work.
14, 15, if you see that, it's a 14, like repeat the back of the sanitary lines, pipes, but if this one is not functioning due to design issue, it's not a contract issue, design issue, then it's a serious problem now. And the number 15, the roof is not draining properly due to design issue. So my concern is that if those things happen because of design issue, then we gotta bring up the architectures in the here. How I don't want to hell, how the heck they make this kind of design to cost the taxpayer?
Yeah, it was an outside architect, so we can certainly engage that gentleman back here and question him on this.
Workmanship, we understand, but if we design issue, it's a totally different issue. So we're going to make sure that where the actually problem is not the design, it's just a poor workmanship, we're going to make sure they're part of it, okay? Because if that's the case, $100,000 is not enough. All right?
Yes, sir.
So item 14, 15, 16, you know what I'm saying, okay?
Okay. 10Z7 was touched on early. 10Z8 is a resolution authorizing member participation into interlocal purchasing system, TIPS. 10Z9 and 10 were touched on earlier. 10Z11 is a resolution authorizing the settlement of a lawsuit for Noor Kella versus the City of Jersey City. 10Z12 through 10Z18 were touched on earlier. 10Z19 is a resolution authorizing professional service agreement with Donahue, Granda, Doria, and Tompkins, certified public accountants, to conduct the annual audit of financial statements in federal and state grant programs for the calendar year 2017. 10Z20 is a resolution authorizing calendar year 2017 appropriation reserve transfers. And before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I just wanted to let you know the reason why you're seeing me, not that I don't want to see you guys, but Robert took a half a personal. Yep. Sure.
I have a question for the mortgages that we're saying are satisfied.
Okay. So
Starting at 10L, they're all in the bulk. So just in general, why, if we're saying it's satisfied after 5 years, why have we waited so long to put a resolution saying that?
No, so they get part of the homeowner assistance rehab program. So they get a grant to do renovations to their home. So once at the end of the term of the loan, they get a 5-year loan, and as long as they keep the property at the end of those 5 years, we get to discharge that mortgage. So it becomes a grant as opposed to a loan.
When they get these grants to fix up their property, they have to live in the property for the 5 years. They agreed to do that, so that they didn't sell, it's not like they fixed it up and sold it or something. They have to live there for the 5-year period. And if they do, then the loan will convert to a grant. If they were to sell in the middle of that, then we would get our money back.
Okay, so as long as they're there for 5 years, and they've satisfied.
Yes,
So
it's like
if-
self-amortizes.
So if this was established in 2003, then 5 years later would be 2008, right? So why are we just?
Well, you know, people, if they're still living in the property, if they didn't go to sell it, they just have this mortgage on their property, and all of a sudden they go to sell their property, and this will show up in the title search, you know? So it's nothing nefarious, it's just, they don't bother.
Just want to let you guys know, Wednesday I will not be at the city council meeting. I mean, I can be at the funeral, you know, if you guys want me to represent you, if you guys are not going to be there. But, you know, Lieutenant Robitou is a personal friend, you know, the family, personal friend of mine, so I will be there, you know, in its entirety actually for the next, you know, couple of days, but 100% I will not be there on Wednesday. Okay, so forgive me. I have no
I just
choice.
wanted to, the reason why you see me, Robert's daughter, his birthday is today, so I wanted to wish her a happy birthday. Everybody to wish her a happy birthday. And on that wonderful note, a motion to adjourn at 9:11 p.m. by Councilwoman Waterman, seconded by Councilperson Robinson. All in favor of the motion by acclamation, please say aye. Aye. We are out of here. Good night.